Diary of Helen Kimball Whitney. In the year of our Lord, 1888, Sunday New Year 1888, a very quiet day, no callers, but Mrs. Talbot, who came for Jenny, and George's father and brother-in-law Will Calder, two Hen and Flawed, and Sister Paramore. After staying a while, Hen and Flawed went to see Jen, taking along the nurse to see her and baby. I told Jen and Mrs. Talbot that there must be a hack got if Jen went from here. Mrs. T agreed with me, but she had no money. I gave Jen $1 and sent for a hack on the corner, which was at the door in a few moments. Mrs. T left her horse and buggy here and went with General. Mr. Talbot came for it, but never came in or spoke to anyone, unhitched the horse and drove away. Rather peculiar, and especially on New Year's Day. I saw Orson going by the tabernacle, looking strongly into the windows, but seeing no one, I being in Helen's at the time. My health will not admit of my going out to Sister Liddy Wells as I hoped to have done, having a very severe cough, and can't face the cold without increasing it, and rheumatism besides. Monday, January 2nd. No sunshine, and colds are the common lot of all. Took in addition to mine having to go out last night and do some chores, which was a desperate act, but couldn't avoid it. My cough straining my back till 'tis lame, and rheumatism worse. Sol paid me a visit and took lunch with me. George, Hent and little Helen have gone to the matinee. The people, children and all, are taking advantage of the sleighing time. Sleighs, cutters and sleds are going it. Tuesday 3rd. Windy and disagreeable all night. And the streets are like glass, people can hardly walk, and sleighing a thing of the past. My cough has worn me down, was bad last night, and today by the time I'd made my bed and cleaned a trifle was so sick had to lay down. Felt discouraged but got up after a while feeling quite the better for a nap. I with Lil's assistance set about straightening things in the kitchen to keep house after today. Flawed came up and on her return went with Helen and got my allowance from the T.O. Helen got me some vegetables, meat and other things which were sent over to me, and also some things from co-op. We had a slight hailstorm towards evening. Wednesday 4th. Worked in the kitchen all day, sitting down often, my body aching all over. Took up and tacked down nearly half the carpet, it was so loose, moved and got things in better shape. We took breakfast here this morning. Hent asked us in there to dinner. My cough has been awful today, took more cold choring outdoor last night. Lily complains of a weak back. She's cried considerably, feels lonely. Jen's gone, and our separating in housekeeping I believe is one cause of it, though she don't admit it. Thursday 5th. Paid dearly last night for my exposure, had to sit up in bed to cough till I got relief. Took alcohol and a swallow of water finally, which is the only thing that stops the cough. Dreamed of being out in the morning, thought I was sick, pale and emaciated. Some woman came along and informed me that this day was one which the saints had been commanded to meet together in every settlement or ward. I thought I had not looked in a glass, and told her so, as if to ask if I looked fit to go. Thought I went towards the meeting nearby and awoke. I thought, half bewildered, isn't this Thursday? Of course, and the dream was to remind me. The impression it gave me was that it was a most important duty for the whole church to keep the fast day and not neglect it. I sent my donation by Hentai, who was the only one of this house who honored the day. I sent an order of 20 CTS on the Coop store and fasted and prayed at home for the blessings that we are most in need of. Afternoon wrote a letter to Mrs. Peyton. Friday 6th. Snowing, had a good night. Orson came in this forenoon, said he was on his way home and the spirit said to him, "Your mother wants to see you. Go and see her." He turned his face and came as directed. I was filled with gratitude, knowing of a surety that the Lord had heard my prayers, and told him I knew that it was the right spirit that spoke to him. I know it too. Said he wanted to know if I had anything new to tell him. I told him no, but I'd long to see him. To have a little visit. He is working hard to finish my father's history, and said he had felt nearly disheartened he found so little time. He be Wells learning this, offered to attend to his business part of the day, to give him a few hours each day to work on it. He had received pay for the writing of the history into $50. He told me he'd seen in dreams some of the rich and proud among our people humbled to the dust, and could understand to a greater extent the meaning of the Savior's words. It is easier for a rich man to go through the eye of a needle than to enter the kingdom of heaven. He felt that 1888 would see more mighty and terrible events than any other in the past. He did not think the deliverance of this people which event was near would put a stop to the persecutions. The wicked would continue to do all they could against the work of God, but the saints would triumph over their foes every time. Saturday 7th, more poorly coughed till my back pains me so that I couldn't make my bed, nor sweep my room till afternoon. Flawed, Sister Dinwiddie and Flo called the weather is bitter cold. Sunday 8th, felt worse this forenoon, tried 5 times before I got my bed made, dusted furniture in the same manner. As soon as I'd begin to work, my head and whole body would pain me. Sol called in on his way to his circle. Last night was coldest we've had. Water in City Creek frozen till afternoon. It began running. Frightful weather for this part of the country. The ice had to be broken in City Creek. The firemen went up in the cannon for that purpose. Mon 9th. Last night the coldest we have had. I was cold part of the night. Flawed called towards night with a carriage, and I got her to take Lily up to Talbot's, as she wanted to see Jen and baby so bad and wanted a change. Weather dreadful. Tuesday 10th. Slept warm, kept a fire for part of the night. Helen made me a fire this morning. No one knows how I suffer by tidying up my room and making my bed. Sister Howard called on me and proposed to come and visit me one day this week if agreeable, which I told her was very, and to come tomorrow. I had a large black cat come to me last week. He was mewing in the cold, and I called him to me. Seems fond of being petted and wants me to let him get in my lap. Leaped up and purred and fondled in my lap. The first day I took him into Helen's, and he caught 2 mice under the cupboard within a few minutes and Flawed jumped into chairs and screamed while I sat quiet and enjoyed it. They say that it is good fortune to have a black cat come to you. I'd never heard of it before. Wednesday 11th. So much better that I cleaned and put my room to rights without the pain and weariness that I've felt since being sick with colds. Sister Howard came, and we had a good visit. Sister Wood from Springville came and stayed part of the evening. Weather milder today. Thursday 12th. Foggy this morn, and thawing. AM still feeling better, though rheumatism still sticks to my shoulders and hip. Worked too hard and had to lay down at evening quite prostrated. A sister called yesterday asking if I had any old shoes or clothes, as she'd numbers of children and her husband had been unable to find work. I told her to call today and I see if I had any, but she has not come. Friday 13th. Lily came home today, snowing hard all day. The woman who wanted some old clothes called with one of her little girls. I found her quite a bundle of things, gave her my sateen basque and skirt, which had not been washed, but once a thick coat once belonging to Jen, a pair of good warm kid gloves with fur on the wrists, which were left here by someone long ago, a basket full of stockings and socks that would do to cut down, and some still good enough to wear, a black skirt of fine cloth once Flawed's, and a petticoat, a pound of butter for cooking, and over half I had of good table butter, etc., which she appeared grateful for. Said her husband had got a job of cutting kindling. I had previously inquired into their circumstances, and when learning that he cut wood, I told her I had been trying to get a man for that purpose, and would be as thankful for it as she seemed to be for what I'd given her. She promised to tell him and was sure he'd come. When I asked what they had to eat, etc., she said only bread and a piece of bacon, so I gave her the butter, telling her how I had known want of things that I could eat, etc., and knew how to feel for others. They had been here only a year. She took off a thin shawl and put on the coat, which made her look more comfortable. Wealth and want has no businas to go side by side in the midst of Zion. Saturday 14th. AM troubled with laying awake nights. My cough better, have used gin, which Sister Howard recommended, said it was of a healing nature to the lungs. I forgot to mention receiving 2 papers, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, and the Post-Express, of the same place, January 2nd and Jan. 4th. I emptied feathers into chair cushioning and covered it for the old rocking chair. Also filled a small pillow with feathers out of my large ones, which were too full. Sunday 15th. Sol called a few moments. The folks in the other part went down to Alice Calder's, Lil and I alone till towards evening. Flawed and Hen came. He was for going back immediately. But I told him if he must go, Flawed might stay a while. She stayed, and he came for her near dark. I exhorted them to remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, not allow themselves to backslide, for they'd find themselves in need of faith to meet the things that were coming. Monday 16th was a sick day for me, and Lily under the weather and lonesome. I laid awake from 1 o'clock till after 5, and after a short sleep awoke, had those deathly spells every few minutes growing harder till afternoon, stayed in bed till 2 o'clock. And fasted and prayed, took my first meal after 5 o'clock. With the exception of an egg and wine after dressing me, felt no disposition to eat, but to pray for the necessary faith to be healed, or grace sufficient to endure patiently all that was needful to make me a saint. Tuesday 17th, Orson came to see me and told me some experience of his own and others in grappling with the powers of the evil one, and gaining the victory and receiving great blessings from above, etc. I felt very weak, but cut me out 2 pair of flannel garments and sewed a little. But near night went out to do some chores, got out some wood from the snow, and brought it in, and did other needful things, came in and had the first of those deathly spells since in the morning, and my right side pained me through the evening. Flawed came up to see me a few minutes. Promised to come one day this week and spend the day. Lily's feeling lonely. Wednesday 18th. Had one dreadful spell in the morning which made me sick all day, had another near night much worse today. I have done nothing in sewing. Flawed came to see how I was. My washing was done this afternoon. The woman charged me only 50 cts. Today has been the brightest and warmest, thawed considerable, but cold at night. Thursday 19th, spent a sick night, and the same most of today, cleaned up my room and tried to sew, but felt too sick towards eve. Got the organ into my bedroom thinking it would help Lily to pass away some of the time. Her spirits and mine are about on a par. She went to Mrs. Musser's afternoon, and I sent her $700 in TO. Orders to finish paying for the sewing done for Flawed last summer. This valley is covered with a thick fog today, very dreary, for a sick one with depressed spirits. Have had palpitation of the heart brought on by these dreadful spells. They have made me sicker this time than usual. At the start they prostrated me, and though not very near together, yet the effect is terrible. Mary Kimball came in to see me a little while Sister Paramore called in the evening, which cheered up Lil and myself. Friday 20th. Still foggy, but I'm feeling better. Made pancakes for dinner after tidying up my room, but my spirits are oppressed from the effects of those deathly spells. Had 2 through the day, tried to sew on my garments. Saturday 21st. Was up earlier than usual, gave George a list of things to get me at Coop, some iron and porcelain for use in cooking, a tin pan and one of porcelain, and some groceries, which came this afternoon. A woman from over Jordan came with butter to sell. She told me she was the one to whom I gave a small stove, an old lounge, and a large pile of clothes and things. I had no change to pay for butter, but I felt so for her, she having told me that she sold all the butter she made, that their home was mortgaged, and their children were destitute, etc., that I gave her a $2 order on the TO. And told her I had some old things, which she asked me if I'd save for her till she could call for them next Saturday. I promised I would. I've about cleaned out my half-worn old clothes, and things that I had on hand to relieve the poor who've come to me. My heart aches to think of the suffering and humanity so hard to find among the rich. The proud and heartless, some professing to be saints, turn a cold shoulder to the poor in Zion, but thank the Lord their time is measured. Sunday 22nd. Another cold taken, I hardly know how, with cough brought on, pleurisy on left side, my lung raw as meat, and painful, grew worse. And by the time my room was tidied, I had to apply a mustard poultice. Called to see me, and I, growing worse, asked him to administer to me. He did so, and asked if I'd like to be prayed for, as he was on his way to the circle. I got no rest till I undressed and went to bed. Was easier from that time. It was a little before 2 o'clock. Helen and ate some bags of hops and vinegar and applied to my shoulder with that, and gin mixed with honey for my lungs. I was relieved, though my cough was deep and wearing. Flawed was up Saturday and promised to go and bring Jen up, and I'd thought to be well enough to enjoy it. She came and is to stop here a while, which I hope will make Lil and me more cheerful. Bud and wife called in to see us after noon. Hen and Flawed went to the assembly hall and couldn't get in, so came over here. Henty went to evening meeting in our chapel. Mond. 23D. Flawed came up on the way, ordered chickens, got dinner with Lily to assist. And Hen came a little after 3. Flawed stayed till 9 o'clock. When he came for her, seemed like old times. He said to see Flawed here at work. We appreciated it, having enough to surround the table. Also to have some music and singing. I had got our organ into my bedroom last week as I've had to stop here and wanted music once in a while. Tuesday 24th Orson called to see me a few minutes. We had rain and hail last night. There is a general thaw. The sun has come out once more to cheer us. Have felt more poorly today. Obliged to lay down. Our hydrant has had to be replaced by a new one. The neighbors have had to come here for water. There's having frozen up but are now thawing out. By the monkeying with mine, as George calls it, they got it so they could not stop the water which previously had been running very slowly. My lot was flooded from it and merry somewhat. Wednesday 25th. Suffering still from my cough, rheumatism, and pleurisy brought on by the cough. I don't know what I'd do if Jen hadn't come to stop with me. She fixes up something tasty to eat to tempt one's appetite. Major Talbot brought her a letter from Ed. Bro. Patterson called, feeling impressed to do so. He administered to me. Then I asked him to bless Lily, who also felt badly in body and spirits. She received a letter from Logan. Thursday 26th. So sick, could not sit up for half the day. My right hip very bad and cough. Also had a fever. Received a call from Golden Kimball in the afternoon. Flawed came up, says they are furnishing their house to move into. Yesterday Zena called and left little Emily to stop all day. Racy came for her near night. Friday 27th. Better, though very feeble and poor appetite. Am worn down, coughing hard most of the time. Sent by Helen for some cough medicine and other articles. Bro. J. Kingsbury called on me this morning to get the number of our house to send Sister Lightner 9 at Minersville by. Her request. Dreamed of the dead the last 2 nights. Dreamed last night of Father Brigham and other brethren, also my mother and other sisters returning from some trip. Some of the head men who were at the place where I was, which seemed to be a public house, were making great preparations to welcome them back, which would keep them up late, and I thought it out of place, and that they needed rest the most of anything, and so expressed myself as I came into one of the large rooms. President Young 10 was in bed, and he beckoned for me to come to him. I did so, when he pointed to a woman working at a table, making something for the feast, and said, "There is a whore." I had not noticed her until he pointed to her. There was much that had gone from me when I awoke the night before. I was cooking a large kettle of beef, and was to give Orson Whitney and Carl, I think he was the second one, a portion. I put 2 pieces on a platter, one smaller than the other, but good sized pieces. Saturday, 28th, was sicker than usual till nearly night, head paining me in addition to other elesh. Dreamed of father and mother again last night. Lula Stenhouse called yesterday near night. Her mother called in the evening to explain some things. Sunday 29th. Feel better than I have before for some time. Had a call from Elias Kimball, and Sarah Seacless was with him. Orson called to borrow my satchel. Flawed and Hen called after meeting. Mon 30th. Miss Grace Gallagher came to make my flannel dress. Flawed came and stayed part of the day. My cough is bad enough. Tuesday 31st. Felt more poorly. My dress finished. Paid $2 for 2 days' work. Dress made beautiful, much better than when I have put them out, and cheaper too into the bargain. Bro. Joshua called to see us. Weather still lovely. I learned that my bro Charlie had fallen from a tree that he was trimming and was taken up senseless. Hurt his back. Wednesday, February 1st. Have taken more cold and cough incessantly. Sister Snow and another sister called as teachers in the place of Sister Susan Young. Mrs. Talbot called. The place they've been renting is sold and they are to move to a cheaper place. Her hired girl, she said, is not to work for them any longer and will do our washing. Will be glad to get her. Jen will stay here till she goes to Ed. I prepared our herb beer at evening, though I felt little able to do it. Thursday 2nd. Fast day. I fasted and prayed at home. My cough wearing upon me. Flawed called and invited me to ride, but I dared not go out. Jen went instead, and I took care of baby. Received a bottle of cough medicine from S. Halverson, a young acquaintance of Jen's who called here yesterday, and promised it to send it. It had helped her, and I was glad to hear of anything that would relieve me. It is rum, and I think I told her I'd pay her for it. But she sent it to Coop for George Bourne to bring me. Flawed went to T.O. to get my monthly allowance. She paid my tithing and ordered me a load of coal, and sent me the remaining orders by George. I had a dream this morning. Thought I was in a house where several of the apostles, President Brigham Young, my father, President Taylor, being among them, also my mother and others of their wives who were in hiding. I was in a bed sick, and in an awful condition my mouth at times would fill with what appeared hard substances between my teeth and cheeks and looked similar to false gums, some broken in small pieces which I spit out, and one was nearly half the length of my lower gum when I took it out. I told some young woman there of the matter, and she told me I must be careful not to swallow any as it was poison, said there were many persons afflicted the same. I took it that it was something like diphtheria. After that I dreamed of the persons, who were in hiding, being upstairs where they had an entertainment, and I thought I heard my Charlie's voice just at the close of one of his recitations for their entertainment, and was applauded by them. I didn't see him, nor had I known of his being among them. I dreamed other things, but can't remember them distinctly. Friday and Saturday. My health so much improved that I went to work, turned my bed round, and moved my pictures in the parlor, though having to lay down. I rested and went to work again and cleaned the parlor, after which I felt gratified and thankful to be able to do a little. Today, Saturday, is mine and Horace's 42nd wedding day. Sunday 5th was spent very pleasantly. Had all my family unexpectedly flawed, and Hen came first, then Orson, Zine, and the children also. Mr. and Mrs. Talbot were here. Orson wanted to hear the girls play and sing, and as my organ was in the dining room, and the dinner table not cleared, we went into George after flawed and Hen sang. Orson was invited to contribute. He sung and whistled, As of You, which delighted us all. Rachel Simmons called. Forgot to mention Soul's brotherly call as usual this morning. Christened my new flannel dress today, which is most comfortable and admired by all, not only for the cloth itself, but the fine fit, it being as easy as an old glove, and appreciate the comfort of it. Mon 6th, spent sewing on my second flannel garment. Took my first out towards Eve. Called into Mary's for the first time for quite a time before Christmas. A card party comes off this eve, given by LOL and Lute Whitney. I was introduced to Mrs. Vinson, her son, and another of their boarders. Wrote nearly a sheet to Mrs. Peyton this evening. Flawed called in and spent a while, as she cares nothing for cards and took no part. Mary promised me some ice cream, which I'd been sitting up for, and Flawed brought it about 10 o'clock with some cake, which was devy dead between Jen and me. Tuesday 7th. Still lovely weather. Felt unwell this morning and took cup of coffee. Helped my head. This is the second time I've taken it lately. Must guard myself, or I'll go back into the mire from which I've been cleansed. Mary brought up a little more cake and ice cream this morning. Young Cannon from Juvenile off. Called for another package of my books. I asked if they found much sale for them. He said yes, there was considerable call for them of late. Wednesday 8th, lovely as ever, mild weather. Sister Frank came to see me, wrote and mailed a letter to Sister Peyton. After also slightly altered my basque lately made. Thursday 9th, took bromide last night to make me sleep, but had no better night than before, laid awake even more than the previous night, feel sick for it. Helen began to wean Bradford last night, finds it uphill business, had a call from Dr. Barney. She gave me a lecture, advised me to sell this place and find a more healthy one where the sun could shine into my room, told me of a lot by the side of Orson on the hill that was for sale and advised me to get it, etc., etc. Her arguments were good, but my own were quite as strong against my taking a step of that kind, particularly to sell to any outsider. Friday 10th, sick for want of sleep. Line erased. Began looking over a pile of papers and cutting out articles to mail, a task that I've longed to get through with, but could not get to do it before. Had a short visit from Sister Frank. Yesterday. Today, Mrs. Talbot called. They've moved on the hill 3 blocks northeast of Orson's. Mailed a letter to Mrs. Peyton. Point 13. Saturday 11th. Another wakeful night. Sick from it. Took cup of coffee and felt better for a while. Bro Patterson called to see me, anointed and prayed for me. I finished doing up papers, did up 6 large packages to send east and west. Read the evening news. Very interesting. There is quite a change in the color of the Trib and Governor West. It is funny how they've wound themselves up in their own political web, till they have to side with the People's Party. The Lord works in a mysterious way, etc. I can easily acknowledge his hand in this matter as well as in all the rest. Sunday 12th. Had more sleep last night than for a number previous, felt improved by it. Spent a pleasant day. Brother Soul called and spent an hour or two in the forenoon. Charlie called afternoon, Mary Ellen, Bud and wife, And later Margaret Clausen came to invite me with Mary to her house next Tuesday, said she'd send for me if I'd go. Mon 13th Jen gone to Talbot's to make a visit, received a letter, and some verses from Sister Peyton. Wrote a letter to Cousin Carrie in California, felt poorly for want of sleep, and other causes with wakefulness at night. Tuesday 14th, was taken to Margaret Clausen's by her daughter to spend the afternoon with our old friends, had a pleasant time, though felt poorly for a while but revived towards evening. Wednesday 15th, lovely weather, took a ride with Flawed and landed at Bro. Charlie's, where I had intended to go today, took my sewing, and had a pleasant visit. Kit Haywood Kimball came in and sat a while. On my way home, called at Phoebe's, found Jen and baby home. Thursday 16th, Flawed took me and little Helen a ride. We went to the graveyard and tried to find her pa's and Charlie's graves, but she could not find them. There were so many graves added. So we returned home. I felt sick and my head ached, as it does commonly of late. Yesterday, I took some tea at Vi's without any trimming and was cured for that day, but I'm too nervous to indulge in it. Our washing was done today by Miss Taylor's sister to Flo, who lived at Hence. Jen feels downhearted not getting any letters from Ed. Lil has kept cheerful all day. Mary Ellen K. called and read me a letter from Adelia in Canosh. She'd received a letter from Mary Bond informing her of the death of her father, Ira Bond of Kirtland. Friday 17th, wakeful most of the night. Jen gave me coffee, have had no headache today, made nearly a dozen squares and marked L on them. Jen received a letter from Ed. She went down to L's, and I went into Mary's, had a chat with Mrs. Vinson, and also with Bro Ward Pack. Bro Joshua called to see us this afternoon, brought me a bottle of blackberry brandy, a gift from him from the drugstore. I appreciate very much. I gave him his mother's Aunt Sarah Smith's portrait, which Horace had in his possession. I also gave him a paper lately published in Cal, edited by Mr. Denham, son of Denham, who befriended the Mormons. In Illinois, this paper was brought me by Mary Whitney to read, it being the property of Mrs. Vinson, filled up with scandal, raked up from the beginning of Mormonism. Much of it professing to come from Uncle Sam Whitney, containing a letter of introduction of Mr. Denham from O.F.W. to his uncle in Kirtland, and exposures of the Mormon book Spalding manuscript, and a mess of balderdash about that and Joseph Smith's early life, etc., all of which has been hashed and rehashed till it disgusts one to see it printed. It was got up to make money. Mother Whitney is made out the murder of her husband from the professed testimony of Olive Bishop, an apostate wife of B.P. Whitney, to B.P. Tuttle, saying that his wife poisoned him in a sling, and in another part of the same paper it is testified that he was killed on the street in the city. Powerful testimony that my father is also mentioned, and many others, and the most barefaced lies that could be concocted, and this Denham professing to be a friend to us, and wants to undeceive the honest portion, making of himself only a laughing stock before them. Among other absurdities, he says that the children of plural wives are less intelligent than those of the first wives, which hundreds of Gentiles would contradict. He is not only unlearned, as the world has it, but denkily ignorant of human nature and of the Mormons. Saturday 18th, felt the worst, laid awake most of the night, obliged to take coffee to keep up. We've got winter again, snowing like 60 and also blowing. I swept the parlor and did a little sewing. Sunday 19th. Had a call from Bro Soul, and in the evening Christine and Ruth Kimball came to see me. We took care of Helen's children so she could go to Eve meeting. Lily got pain in her face. Monday 20th. Almost despaired, slept less than ever, and sick in consequence. Took some tea for dinner and felt all right the afternoon. Flawed and Hen's mother spent the afternoon at Hence by appointment. I took a hot foot bath and some fetty. Tuesday 21st. Stayed in bed till after 10 o'clock, as I never slept till after midnight. Feel better than usual. Did some sewing and taking care of baby. Lily, real sick. Sister P. came to see us, just back on a visit to her daughters. Jen does the work. Dreamed of laying down in bed with a young babe, and father, who was just leaving, came and kissed me on my lips, and I returned it as a goodbye. Have dreamed of the dead frequently of late. Wednesday 22nd. Flawed called to see if I'd like to go to the matinee, and said Sister D would come and take me in their carriage. She took me at 2 o'clock, found the house crowded. George met me at the door with this information, and offered me a seat in the first circle by the side of Helen. I took his arm, and he pulled me upstairs. Had a poor sight, being on the side, but enjoyed the music, and getting out to a place of amusement once more was a treat to me. This was Washington's birthday, and everybody and their cousins were improving it with a few exceptions: Jen washed, and Lil helping take care of her babe and Helen's. The out did me good. I dreamed last night that I was having some building done, or a new kitchen built. As I stood looking, it seemed to work into shape as if by magic more than by the efforts of the workmen who were engaged to build it. The thing was all accomplished similar to the wonders in Aladdin's lamp: the windows, doors, and everything took their place. And the thing that struck me most was this, and I said to a woman standing by me, "Why, look, if I had dictated the job, I could not have thought where to place the doors and windows so nice and convenient as they are now." I was perfectly delighted with it. I've concluded to fret no more over certain matters, but leave all to the Lord, believing He'll manage everything to my advantage and to those in my charge. Thursday, 23rd. Head aching as usual, though I took coffee again. Slept too little, though slept sounder than common. Missed it in not laying abed longer. I had an interesting dream. Thought it was to your tents, O Israel. We were camping after the first day's journey on a spot laid out for that purpose. Vlad was the only one with me as we came into camp, where Horace and his bro Orson had previously arrived. I understood that they had been spreeing, but when Horace came to me, he had just been to the barber's, was shaven and his hair sheared, and his face fair, quite different from what I'd looked for. I'd had 2 of my rocking chairs sent ahead with the wagons, and they not being among my things, I thought they might be with someone else, so I started and visited each company, they being divided into small companies or messes. I didn't find my chairs, but found many acquaintances, and at the farther end of the camp was my father and mother. And with them was Brother Briggy, whom I supposed was dead. The sight of him overpowered me, so I fell on the bed where he laid sick, and wept over him. I thought I was dissatisfied to find them encamped at the opposite extremity of the camp, as I'd wanted to be with them. I awoke, and then fell asleep, and again dreamed of being with them. Father handed me a book to read a few paragraphs he pointed to, which I took, though reluctant to read, as I wanted to tell them this dream, which I've just written. Friday, 24th. Another wakeful night. Laid in bed till 11 o'clock, slept 1 or 2 cat naps, took cold water with my breakfast, and headache came on, lasting all day. Mrs. T, calling with horse and buggy. I rode with her as far as Orson's. The air did me good while riding only. She came towards night and brought me home. Found a letter here from my cousin Libby. Saturday, 25th. Last eve, did my head up in wet bandage, took a hot foot bath, hoping to get a better night's sleep, but no better. Concluded to take cup of coffee for breakfast. Felt quite a different person. Have laid my case before the Lord many times, asking for wisdom and understanding what I should do to bring sleep and a renewal of health once more. This has been my prayer, and I've persevered in the struggle to keep the word of wisdom, feeling conscience smitten whenever breaking over the rule in taking tea or coffee, as I've done a few times when feeling very sick, although I felt relieved by it. Now I'm going to try the virtue of coffee and see if that will accomplish what prayer and abstinence has failed to do. Jen and baby gone home with Mrs. Talbot to stay till Tuesday. Bro Soul called and gave me a photo of father and mother. His is fine, but that of mother's, I told Soul, would be an insult to her, and I'd never consent to having it by father's side in his history. I'd rather have it left out. He took her large picture from my wall and carried it down to Savage's for them to try again. Sunday, 26th. Felt more poorly from lack of sleep. Took coffee, but, though my head did not ache, I felt no better for the taking of it. Mrs. Talbot called with Jen, brought me a loaf of her white bread yesterday. She sent Jen in with a piece of nice cheese. I asked her if she was going to provide for me while my cook, Jen, was gone. And I were invited to eat dinner, and hence Vlad and Hen called after meeting. Bro Soul called this forenoon and sat a while. Mon 27th. Another lovely day. Was just starting up to Bro Charlie's when Vlad came to take me a ride. She left me to Talbot's while she came and took Lil a ride, left her at Talbot's, and took me home with her to Sister Dinwiddie's, where I spent the rest of the day. Went with her and Hen to see their lovely home, hoped they'd enjoy it, I told them. She brought me home after dark. Found Lou Stenhouse at Henty's. Tuesday, 28th. Took breakfast alone this morning, as Lil stayed with Jen. Had a tolerable night's sleep, though I laid awake till nearly midnight. Have taken bromide the last 2 nights at going to bed, and again in the night. Cloudy storm brewing. Jen and Lily returned this evening. Wednesday, 29th. Slept but little till morning as usual, but felt all right after drinking a cup of coffee. George and Hentai give a card party tonight, bro. Soul called with another picture of mother taken from her large one. Snowing all day and Jen washing. And I taking care of baby mostly. At dark the company commenced to gather, house crowded, and I taking care charge of children in my room. Quite troublesome part the time hent. Jen having to come and attend to them. Flawed took no part in the games, but she and Miss Vincent waited on those who did. When the bell rung they had their table and mindset, and filled with good things. I went in a few minutes after the first table, and took a light lunch. Thursday, March 1st, fast day. I retired after 11 o'clock last night, took bromide, slept good till nearly 10 this morning, waking often, but going to sleep and feel refreshed for it. Fasted and prayed for the Lord to bless and guide us, being in need of this more than anything else. I did up several packages of papers to send out to Gentile friends, besides taking care of the baby much of the day. Friday 2nd. Weather gloomy and windy. March like. Feel very poorly from too little sleep. Sat 3rd. Had a sharp snowstorm near night. Commenced a letter to Sister Peyton this evening. Have finished reading the Book of Dreams, Visions, and Signs, etc. brought me by Mrs. Talbot. Soul called with another picture of mother taken from her large one. I think it the best, but he prefers the other. Sunday 4th. Lovely weather. Arose at 11 o'clock. Read aloud a sermon of B. Young's and one of Parley P. Pratt's, preached in 1853. Jen was my only listener. We enjoyed it. And in the evening she commenced the Book of Mormon reading aloud to me. Mon 5th. Snowing this morning. Slept better last night. Took bromide as usual. Did some sewing and took care of our baby. Tuesday 6th. Spent most of the day taking care of baby Jen, having been out to trade and to find a dressmaker. Received an invitation to go to Rachel Grant's tomorrow, and also an invitation to Rachel Simmons Thursday next. Wednesday 7th. Got ready to go to Sister Grant's, but did not feel able to walk to the streetcar. Had thought Flawed would be up, sure, but she didn't come till Eve, feeling much improved in health. Thursday 8th. Windy and sprinkling overhead. Wrote a letter to Lily's husband. Mrs. Talbot called, and I rode with her up to Sister Simmons, where a pleasant afternoon was spent with the old set. Only Henriette was very sick, whom we called to see. Jen missed the baby's nurse, as he hindered her from the work. Friday 9th. Cough worse from going out. Ground covered with snow. My thoughts upon the present boom on land rising in price have impressed me considerably, thinking of the taxes rising also. And I will not be able to meet this change without selling out, but I'll see how things work. Saturday 10th. am still feeling better with the exception of my cough that I got from going out Thursday. Have finished my garment, and sure me commenced this week nurse baby, so I get little time for sewing. Jen gone to Talbot's to spend 2 or 3 days. She cleaned up my room and did most of the work. Before going I sent by Hent to Coop to buy me 6 tea plates and 6 saucers, etc. Sunday 11th. Lovely days yesterday and today. Streets drying fast. Slept splendid and had eaten breakfast before I got up near 9 o'clock. Thankful for sleep, though I'll be more so when I can quit taking things to bring sleep. Bro. Soul called and visited a while. I told him my thoughts over the selling of my inheritance because of the rise of taxes, etc., which I'd been praying over, but was not willing that an outsider should enjoy it, and as I'd told Flawed and Bro Helen last evening, I did not want to have it come up against me that I'd committed sin in selling my home to an enemy, for I could not enjoy life without a clear conscience, and I'd rather have less money. But Soul laid the matter before me in a new light, arguing that if I sold this place, which was worth $0.1000, I'd have means to build, and put part of the money into the bank, from which I'd be above to draw $50 a month for my support. But if I remained here, the place would go to ruin, and I couldn't keep it up, saying nothing of the taxes. And if I sold it, I could pay them taxes being less, and I would be independent of the church instead of drawing from it, at the same time holding such valuable property that I could not make use of. This last I told him would be, or was among the strongest inducements for selling out, as I love to be independent. He also said that he acknowledged the hand of the Lord in this boom. It gave poor men, who owned more land than they needed, a chance to sell and make not only themselves comfortable, but help to build up the city. And he considered that the Gentiles were instruments in the hands of the Lord to do this, and that they would leave them for the saints to inhabit in due time. I told him that I had long believed the latter, but I would not sell to outsiders. He thought Brother Weber would probably buy it, the same man to whom Orson sold a rod of his lot for $1,000. I see no other way for me to do now. Lee Stenhouse made a call. She says she and Fred have made up to be only friends hereafter. I was surprised somewhat. Mon 12th. Beautiful morning, afternoon, walked to XT office, got papers, and rested a while. From there went to the coop to exchange my spectacles, took another kind on trial, walked back, called in T.O., and went to call on Phoebe Kimball, found no one at home, tired, completely outrested, and read Exponent. Then went in to see Mary Kimball a while, the first time this year, and she'd been to see me numbers of times since I'd been in there. Tuesday 13th. Phoebe Kimball spent a while with me. I received a letter from Logan requesting an answer by return mail. I wrote it and mailed it as I went to the Lion House, where I supposed our ward RS met today, but it has met last Tuesday. I went into Sister Susan Young's and found her son-in-law Charlie Burton. He's just ready to take her and his wife for a ride. He invited me to accompany them, which I accepted, of course. Wednesday 14th. Laid awake over 3 hours thinking about selling or renting my house. Broached the subject to Helen. Neither of us desire the change, but I've got to either sell or rent my place to get support. Helen went down for Flawed to take me to the entertainment tonight in the 18th ward. Henty went herself and Flawed took me and went home, and she and Hen came up to it also. I had quite a stretch of my strength, walked up the long stairs at Orson's when I went there to wait till it took up, and again after it was over as I concluded to stop all night. Orson helped me up the stairs, and I was assisted upstairs at the hall. The entertainment being up there, this was unexpected, I not knowing of their holding them there before I went. After retiring, I could not sleep, though I took bromide to ensure it. The babe made some noise, and I got up to close the door. Being so dark I could see nothing, and couldn't find the door, passed through it without knowing it. Into the hall, felt along the hall back and forth till I came to the door at the top of the stairs, opened it and found it was the hired girl's room, turned and walked right to the stairs and slipped down 3 steps, but caught my hand on the railing, which saved me. Orson heard the noise and came out and found me standing, pondering in my mind which course I should take, took my arm and lead me to the bed, and raised the window blind. I was late before going to sleep. Orson inquired of me at the supper table concerning L's being put back upon me to support, etc. I explained her husband's circumstances and made every excuse I could for him. I was telling him of my thinking of renting my home or selling it. He wanted to rent the West Wing, which I'm occupying, and said he'd pay me well if I'd let him have it. He thought they could board to Mary's and live in my house. Thursday 15th. Zine and children went with me to Talbot's and spent the forenoon. Jen, being there, Flawed came there to take me to conference of our society. Had a good time, met a warm welcome, spoke more freely than I thought to have done. Flawed came to bring me home, took me a little ride east, she having taken Zine's little Emily home with her to stop till she came for me, had to take her home. Received and answered a letter from Logan this forenoon. 28. Friday 16th. Went to young ladies' conference this afternoon, Flawed taking and bringing me back, rode a while before returning. I was sorry not to have gone in the morning, there was such an interesting meeting. Jen came home this evening, says Talbot sold their horse and buggy and are going to Denver very soon. Saturday 17th. Cloudy, rained some this morning. Lily went to the exhibition in our schoolhouse last eve, walked there and back with Bro Aylin. I had intended to go to the primary conference this afternoon, but on the way learned that it had closed. Numbers whom I met were disappointed as well as me. Went to Exponent off and visited a while. Sister Young, wife of Phineas Y, was there. She told me that numbers of sisters had spoken to her of the comforting things that I'd spoken at the sisters' conference on Thursday afternoon. Sunday 18th. Spent quietly, no one calling, cloudy part of the time, sunset lovely. Mon 19th. Snowed last night and sunshine this morning. Feel blue over coming events, have spoken to George and Helen about finding some other place. Wednesday 21st. Have been troubled in mind over the parting with my home, cannot come to any decided conclusion. Helen wants so much to have George buy part of my place, which I've offered, but he is not able to pay my price for it. Thought I offered to let him pay me in installments. He would not be willing to take less than half my place, and though I can't bear our being separated, I cannot afford to take less than the worth, nor can I bear to let it go into the hands of unbelievers, like many have done. Flawed came for me to go down to spend this afternoon at Lucy Kimball's. Lucy saw her and sent her for me, met Olive Walker there. Flawed came and brought me home, then went for Jen, who was at Sister E. Gru's getting dresses fitted. Found here a number of things that Mrs. Talbot had sent me. They have everything on the way to Denver, and will go in a few days. Thursday, 22nd. Felt so heavy-hearted, could not rise above it. L. received a letter yesterday from her husband. She was quite comforted and lifted up, myself accordingly relieved on her account, though I feel greatly depressed over her coming trial. And other things, it seems as if my eyes are a fountain of tears. Friday, 23rd. Cloudy storm brewing, and my heart heavy still. Prayed in brokenness of heart that I might be shown my duty, whatsoever it might be I would do it with the help of the Father, and that he would send some good counselors soon, and make his mind known to me, that I might not make any misstep in disposing of my home, or other ways do what I would regret. My brother Sol called, though Talbot and wife had previously called to bid us goodbye, and I was talking over the matter of renting or selling part of my place, when Sol came in, and I referred him to the editorial in the news an evening or two before, about people selling their homes. His counsel was for me to sell the east part with the house, and keep the west wing for myself, that would not be selling me out of a home. I agreed to this if I could sell it to a Latter-day Saint. He said he believed he could find one that would pay me $6,500, or somewhere near that. I authorized him to go ahead, wondering if he was the counselor that I'd been praying for. Saturday, 24th. Snowing this morning, but cleared off. Dinwiddie's carriage sent for us to go to Hen's mother's, as she'd invited us there, expecting then to be had Major Talbot and wife also in this. She was disappointed, as they could not stay any longer, and took the train this forenoon. We had quite a pleasant visit. Flawed came twice with the large carriage. Jen, Lil, myself, and little Helen were the first load. Mary and her little Hattie Helen and baby came next. Sunday, 25th. Spent a quiet day. No callers. Snowed last night quite deep. Clark Whitney brought his album for me and Jen to write in, so I composed these lines, my first effort for a long time. Dear Clark, what betide thee? May the shepherd's voice forever guide thee. In his love rejoice, and serve him evermore. Ever your Aunt Helen. Mon 26th. Nothing worthy of mention occurred except that Jen had a visit from her old friend Polly S. Merwin. Tuesday, 27. Sol called to get the names of our father and mother in their own handwriting for the history. Lily feeling poorly, in low spirits. Wednesday, 28th. Commenced a letter to Bro. Peyton had to stop to take care of our little darling, and did a trifle of sewing. Have had a headache 2 days, slept too little. Thursday, 29th. Laid in bed till 10, have had a worse headache today, took cold and taking a bath the other morning. Spent this afternoon at Ellen Clausen's with the same crowd who were at Margaret's 3 weeks ago. My head ached so that it took from my enjoyment. We were invited to Kate Young's a fortnight hence. My girls from here and children had been out and took tea with Sarah Eccles and husband I found when returning home. Friday, 30th. Am some better, but my head feels badly. Have taken quinine yesterday and today, and pills last night. Tried to sew but gave it up. Flawed called towards night and took me a buggy ride. Mild weather and very enjoyable. Saturday, 31st. The girls doing a big ironing, and I scrubbed the back platform, the door kills, and washed the zincs to 2 stoves, and the parlor and kitchen doors a bit. Felt that I'd be a good deal happier were I blessed with strength to do my housework finished. And mailed a letter to Bro P. Helen has gone to see Booth and Barrott. Sunday, April 1st. Rained last night. Sol called in the forenoon, also Flawed and Hen. Afternoon Violet grew, and her husband Will Taylor called. I saw a striking resemblance between him and my boy Charlie. The upper part of Taylor's face was very striking. Mon 2nd. I took a walk over to Phoebe Kimball's. She was out. I sat on the porch a while and came home. Jen went up to Vi's in the afternoon with baby. I worked on some flannel. Tuesday, 3D. Raining. Orson came here in a disconsolate mood to see if there was any chance of getting a part of my house for him and family, as he'd rented his house, and the folks were to take it the first of next week, and he'd tried in vain to find another. I offered him my west parlor, and he offered $10 or more if I'd do him this favor. I also offered the rest of this wing that I'm now living in. When George found another place, told him, in Helen's presence, that I'd agree to live in the dining room that she now has if she would agree to it, and take the one I'm using, and the little cook room, till they found another place. She and George agreed to it, and Orson accepted my hint about pitching a tent in the backyard. If they could do no better, he went away quite cheered up. Oscar Bourne called and informed G and H that he had heard of a house in the 19th Ward that he thought could be rented for $10, and they think they'll get moved this week. The more I think of their going away, the bluer I feel over it. If they go, Orson and Xena can have the 2 front rooms and relieve me of the terrible job of moving. I asked Orson's counsel about selling part of my place, and he told me not to do it, and I will abide his counsel. Wed forth, raining never slept till near morning, troubled over matters and things, cried and prayed without ceasing that things might be overruled for the best, was worried, thinking maybe Xena would not like the east rooms, and of how hard any move would be, as feeble as I am, and it would prostrate my body, so I'd be unfitted for doing anything by the time L's sickness comes on the docket. Did not rise till 9 o'clock. Orson and Zine came. I met them at the door. They looked, I told them, as if they'd been rained down, they being wet and dripping. They'd come to inform us that they had got a house just a little below the one they lived in before buying the Anderson house. They said they'd slept good on this bit of good news, and I informed them that I'd had the very opposite. Orson thanked Helen and me, saying we had had the chance of showing our generosity, that they would be ever so much better off as well as we. This took a heavy weight from our minds, as we can now take our time and not have to hurt ourselves moving. This is Flood's 21st birthday. Jen got a lovely album to present her. She and myself wrote in it. Flood came up and Jen gave it her. Laura Pack called on me. Phoebe Kimball came and spent the evening. Thursday 5th. Have taken a dreadful cold on lungs and head. Cough incessantly. Did not sleep till after 1 o'clock. Got up then and took bromide. Is the way I took cold, I presume. I took care of Jen's baby. She and Hent went with Flood to attend the funeral of Juliet Croxall's sister. Conference begins tomorrow. Friday 6th was another sick day for me, though my lungs were relieved by applying oil, camphor, and turpentine outwardly, and taking quinine, also lemon sling at going to bed. Sweat profusely after. My head I bandaged with wet cloths and flannel. Took more quinine and pills today. Was relieved towards night. Received a letter from Bro P this forenoon. Saturday 7th. Coughed half the day and then let up partially. Have done a little sewing during the week as well as taking care of the baby. The city full of conference people. Sunday 8th. My cold settled in my right knee joint, quite cripples me, and I feel worse every way. Jen and Hent went to conference, but could not get in. Laura Pack, who has called to see me every day since coming from Camos, came and sat a while. Flood and Hen and a cousin of his called and sat a while. Mon 9th. My rheumatic knee is very painful and I have hard work to walk. The weather fine. Tuesday 10th. Began a letter to O.F on business pertaining to selling or renting part of my place. Wednesday 11th. Taken addition to my cold, cough worse, have headache. Jen's baby sick, has a cough and a fine rash on his body. Phoebe K came over and brought our milk. She urged me not to fail going to Kate Young's tomorrow. Thursday 12th. Head ached awfully this morning. I wrote a note for Flood to come and take me to Kate Young's. Sent it by Phoebe. She never received it till late in the day, but Ellen Clausen's Winnie came for me. Jen's baby being sick and Helen going away, she wished me to stay with her. Therefore I declined, but Kate would not excuse me and sent again, so I went and had a pleasant time. Previous to this, M. Wells came and brought Sister Greenelchup from below Fillmore on a visit. M. left her and she took dinner with us and had quite a pleasant little visit. Friday 13. Spent most of the day sewing for Jen, as she expects to go soon. Ed writing that he thought he'd send the money this week. I felt dejected in spirits, started out to go to X. Off. M. Piper being at her mother's gate, took me in her buggy. Met Orson there, where yesterday I'd sent a letter to him by Sister Greenelch. He was in a similar mood to myself. We stood out by the gate and talked on the subject I'd written upon. He finally concluded that it would be right if I sold part or all of my place to a Latter-day Saint. I again asked him to make this matter a subject of prayer, which he said he'd do. After my telling him my feelings concerning George and Helen going away when there was no place to go to, and my feeble condition of body, not able to work, nor do anything much of the time, was unfit to be by myself, he told me to let them stay a while. I came home feeling lighter-hearted for the talk. George informed us that he'd got the house he'd been trying to get for $11. Saturday 14th. A.M. afflicted with a painful boil. Orson came to bring Emily to the birthday party of Mary's Hattie. Lily and Jen overworked, with ironing, etc. Jen cleaned my parlor, the weather getting very warm, making hot cook stoves anything but comfortable. Little Bradford sick, vomiting, etc. Helen took him in his carriage down 3 blocks west to look at the house they had engaged. Came back perfectly used up with the walk and heat, and baby worse was disgusted with the house and its surroundings, found it filthy and a horrid place, and saw yellow flags in the neighborhood. George met her there, and they concluded they'd rather pay me the extra $1 if I'd allow them to remain here a while longer. I was more than willing they should without any addition to the price. Thought it awful for her to live off there alone, where she'd be obliged to stay with the children, or take them with her. She felt as though she could not go into such a place as that after living here. Sunday 15th, Sol called and said a while as usual. Helen's little Bradford worse. Sol said he'd have him remembered in the circle today, still suffering from my boil. Mon 16th, felt so sick had to lay down a while. Jen's blew over Ed's situation under Dr's treatment in Aspen for salivation. Working in the OS. G was writing him, and I got up and wrote a few lines. Inviting him to come here and live in my house, and look out for work in something besides the mines that would shorten his days, to not stay there till his means was used up, but take it and come, and that this was her mind as well as mine instead of her going there. Tuesday 17th, sick half the day from my boil, felt better afternoon, wonder what is the next trial. Jen been down to Flood's, who brought her home. She took another spin with her after nursing baby, and I take care of him. It is arranged for myself and family to go down to Flood's Thursday. They have got settled in their own house at last. Wednesday 18th, enjoyed a lovely night's sleep, spent a pleasant, quiet day in my parlor, wrote to Mr. WMH. Beard and IND, got tired and took a walk to X off. Met Orson at corner of news office, who was going to the same place as usual. I took 8 packages of papers with me to mail and a letter, which I found long ago in father's papers, written him in England by Bro. D. H. Wells, while on his first mission to that land. Bro. Wells was in the office and was quite pleased to get it. He read it and found things therein mentioned which he'd forgotten and was pleased to be reminded of. Orson had father's history uppermost in his mind, and searched through some of the bound exponents for my historical sketches taken from my father's journal. Thursday 19th, felt this morning that I'd sell out if obliged to endure nights, made hideous by young folks on the lawn at my left through the summer and autumn months, as is the prospect. But Fred Clausen is now in love with Miss Vinson, one of Mary W.'s boarders, and brings his guitar to accompany him in pouring out the sweet strains, which of course are just the thing to capture the fair maiden, but torture to the rest of us. Florence sent for me before 12. And not being ready, Lily went first. My family were all there to dinner, had a pleasant time. They've got a lovely home, and Flawed enjoys doing her housework. Friday 20th, was awake most of the night thinking and feel somewhat poorly. Sol called towards night, was going teaching. The weather getting very warm. Saturday 21st, wide awake again. Latter part of the night was on the lawn sprinkling some cloth to bleach, and saw Bro. Morris passing, hailed him, and asked if he'd take orders on T.O. for the covering of my shanty last summer. He said he took wheat. If I could get that for him, he'd accept it. But after I'd shown him the poor work the man had done and told him how the tar had run through the boards, etc., he told me if I'd give him the T.O. order, he'd see to the getting of the wheat himself. Bought me a pair of steel cuff fasteners of an agent for 15 CTS. The price was 20 CTS. Sunday 22nd. Wrote or finished a letter to Mr. Beard. Then read in the Bible till taken with one of the old spells which perfectly prostrated me. Josh and Mary Jane grew, called at evening. Wednesday 25th, I've been very bad since Monday night, those spells coming on continued till bedtime last eve, the worst, and lasting twice as long as they have usually done, prostrating me, so I had to give up yesterday afternoon and lay down. Flawed was up to take Jen to Sister Eliza Grew's. The wind and dust blew yesterday, and was followed by rain last night, and snowed some today. We're thankful for it. I feel as though I'd been sick for days. This is the first I've had of those deathly spells since the 16th of January, the reason for their being so much harder. Have had one only today, laid down a while and felt better, did a little sewing afterwards. Phoebe came in and stayed a while towards evening. She told me that Caroline Kimball with her 3 youngest children were up to Bear Lake with her mother and family. Jen had the neuralgy today. Thursday 26th. Slept good, had but one bad spell after going to bed, but feel poorly. The sun is out today, looks cheery. Evening. Have been out riding with Flawed. She took me up to Orson's and left me while she came and took Lil out. I'm quite charmed with the place. They live in such a cozy, romantic little nook, as well as convenient, and near to the streetcar. Orson quite surprised to find me there. Flawed came for me and brought me home. She brought me a box of strawberries, California fruit, when coming the first time. I've had 3 deathly spells today, felt very bad from them, but the out did me good. Lil sad enough, I wrote a letter to Mrs. P. this morning, and while doing so received one from her informing me that she could not come down as was agreed upon when she was here. Friday 27th. Took a slight cold riding yesterday, but better otherwise. Have done more sewing this forenoon than for quite a time, was quite a treat, but I was so tired out, was nearly prostrated by it. Sister Jane Tinney Simons came to see me, and a number have called. The teachers of our RS also called. Saturday 28th. Sister Jane stayed all night. I worked about the house, sewed and tended baby. Flawed called and took me buggy ride, took little Bratty along. She also took Lily a ride, wrote a sheet to cousin Jeanette sent by Helen, and got some quinine for Jen, who is suffering from neuralgia. Sunday 29th. Read several chapters, or Psalms of David before prayers this morning. Soul called this morning as usual, and in the afternoon brothers Charlie and William, Flawed and Ed. Also, all 4 of them went to call on Sister Sarah Eccles. Jen went to the tabernacle, and I took care of baby, and he cried a goodly part of the time. She had neuralgia, worse this evening than before. Mon 30th. Did some work fixing for LOL's wedding. I presented her with a book of engravings with the hymn Nearer My God to Thee. Jen is well today, and we attend the wedding this evening. Sights of presents have come in. The sky is cloudy, and it sprinkled some. Tuesday, May 1st. Cloudy and rained a little, but the wind and dust most plentiful, and the weather cold. Flawed called, started out for a ride, but found it unpleasant. I pinned down 1 pair of lace curtains, the washing having been done today by Mrs. Johnson. Jen cleaned under the stairs, and the hall comes next. Wednesday 2nd. Pinned down another pair of curtains and sewed on the machine, which has lately been fixed over by Bro. W.M. Hansen. I paid him $2.50. Received a letter from Bro. Abe writes that his wife Mary E. has a girl baby and his daughter Clara Christensen has a son. An agent called, and I gave him my Charlie's likeness, taken with a group at Mesa, as he thinks it can be retaken and give satisfaction. Orson called in yesterday and left $100 draft on Cormax's bank, my allowance of Orson KS and Carl Whitney's portion from the W. estate. Mary had $135 of it. Thursday 3rd. Fast day. Jen went and got the baby. Blessed Lily went with her, and I cleaned the rooms and pinned down the 3D pair of parlor curtains. We ate dinner, and hence I went to T.O. got a bunch of narrow ruffling 20 CDS, went to X off. To get papers, was informed that I was invited to Morgan to attend conference, but had no idea that I could go particularly alone, as none others who were invited were going. I'd have to start in the morning, and I'm not well enough, but I'd like to go there, as it is a place that I've never visited. Friday 4th. I put my curtains on the cornice after pressing, and darning some places on them. Was to have gone to a reunion of RS in 8th Ward, but being rainy and windy, gave it up. Wrote to Bro Abe afternoon. Jen received a letter from Ed. She went down street and bought some strawberries. We had them for breakfast and dinner today, and have enough for breakfast again. Saturday 5th. Jen caught cold riding out with George last eve. Has a return of the neuralgia. I'm feeling well for me. Have dreamed 2 nights of my Charlie. Jen tidied up my rooms, and Lily did the scrubbing, and I've done some sewing. Flawed came towards night and took me a ride, and on the way back we called into Charlie's. Vi looks very poorly. I dug up some of my hop vines this morning and set them out each side of my portico. George and Helen spent part of this evening in my part, talking upon affairs pertaining to the Whitney estate and how it's been divided. Sunday 6th. Rained in the night and sprinkling this morning. Hen and Flawed called after meeting. Mon 7th. Lil's things came by mail from Logan. Jen is ailing, and myself also from colds. Tuesday 8th. Jen cleaned the hall and put down another carpet. Helen was getting the dining room cleaned yesterday. I sewed so study all day, felt exhaust, read Orson's sermon of Sunday last to the girls by lamplight. Wednesday 9th. Sick from yesterday's work, headache all day. Dr. Barney called here Monday to see if I'd like to go a ride, wanted me to set the day. I told her Wednesday, if agreeable, as I was to go to Juliet Croxall's afternoon, and she could leave me there. Flawed called with her outfit to take me, but I fixed Lil to go with her, and Sister B came and took me a 2 hours ride, stopping to various places to do business and make calls. Called at Sister Freeze and was treated to a drink of new buttermilk. Lil, Flawed, and myself were the only ones at Juliet's. Jen, being sick, could not go. Sister Jane James, colored, Liv's neighbor, and having heard that I was coming, expressed a wish to see me, so Juliet went and told her. She came just before I left. We knew each other in Nauvoo when we were young. Flawed brought me home, and I found Jen worse. She retired, and I went up to Bro James at the end of the street, where I was invited by his wife's mother, Sister Horn, to spend the eve. Quite a party gathered there. Bro D. H. Wells, Angus Cannon, and a number of brethren were there. Bro Moses Thatcher was there a short time. The house was dedicated before we left. D. H. Wells offered the prayer after we sang the hymn, "Let us anew our journey pursue." Sister Horn and her sister start for England Saturday next. We broke up after 12 o'clock. President Angus Cannon offered his services to see me and Bathsheba Smith home. One of his wives was along, but he said the law did not allow him to acknowledge her, as he gave his arms to Sister B and myself. He inquired after my health and what my age was during the evening, and predicted then, and when walking home, that I would recover, and believed that I would yet become stout and healthy. I told him this was predicted on my head during my sickness last summer, and previous to that by different ones. He said this was his belief. One of Bro Horn's sons, bishop of one of the towns south, introduced himself to me, said he had not met me before, but had enjoyed reading my writings in the Exponent, etc. I thanked him, feeling to appreciate the compliment. Thursday 10th. Jen better, and Lily has pain in her head and each side of her throat. Took more cold at Juliet's is the cause. I did up several parcels of papers to mail and wrote a PC to Mrs. Peyton. Friday 11th. My head aches, taken more cold getting up to wait on Lily in the night. Received the Knightstown banner of May 4th from Mr. Beard of Spiceland, Indiana, in which is published most of my letter to him, written the 18th of last month. Bought of a woman agent, Dr. Lyons, magnetic compound for the hair, a trial package, 50 cents. Took tea for dinner, and my headache left Lily worse today. Saturday 22nd 12th. Lily better, the gathering in her neck and throat broke last night. Friday, May 18th, 1888. The past week has been one of sickness for poor Lily from an ulcerated tooth. It broke Thursday last inside and gave relief. I wrote a letter to Logan. Lily wanted Orson to administer to her, and I sent him word, but she'd got relief. He and family go to Manti today to the temple dedication. I was broke of sleep so much by Lily that I was sick Wednesday and wondered what I was to do. Flawed called, and seeing our condition, offered to come and stay with her. She and Hen came after 9 o'clock, and Jen and I made a bed on Helen's floor. I slept the latter part of the night and felt renewed. Flawed stayed the forenoon, cleaned up, got breakfast, and Hen returned to it at 9 o'clock. They'd brought some things with them to eat and drink the evening before. Flawed helped clean up things before leaving. Jen ironed, and at night had neuralgia to pay for. It was very bad. Saturday 19th, had a good night's sleep, but am tired out working so hard yesterday, waiting on Lily, watering the lawn, and tending baby Hen. And Flawed called to see how we all were. We're starting for Ogden to stay till Monday. We had our washwoman to clean the bedroom, and I put down the carpet, though I had a sickness in my stomach and could eat my no dinner till late in the day. Jen put up the bedstead and did housework, was sick with neuralgia and very bad night. Sunday 20th. I worked the forenoon putting the rooms to rights. Jen better this morning. I had to go to bed tired out and had a poor night as far as sleep was concerned. We enjoyed a peaceful day's rest. Soul called and sat a while. He tells me he's moved onto the hill above Bro Patrick's. Dan Kimball has moved into one part of it. Mon 21st. Lily's face swollen up again and very painful, broke on the outside this afternoon. Poor girl feels disheartened. I don't wonder. I've worked hard today, sent by Helen, and got cough drop strawberries and carbolic acid. Have used the latter around my house. Lil is like another girl this afternoon. Flawed and Hen returned home from Ogden. Tuesday 22nd. I've had little sleep through the night, showered some today. Weather chilly. Harriet Kimball called and stayed to dinner. May, her niece, also called. I hardly knew her. She's so faded. She has been sick. I swept my parlor and tired out with tending baby. Wednesday 23d. Cool morning. Orson called to see how we were and get some breakfast. Just back from Manti, left wife and children at Provo. He prayed with us and testified that a good spirit reigned here. Said they had a glorious time at the temple. Lily is better and helping about the housework. Thursday 24th. Lily awoke about 5 o'clock. Her water broke, and I got up, and Jen also. We had no one to send for Dr. Ellis' ship till they got up in the other part. George sent for her, and Lily was got into the middle room. All went right with her, though slow, till after the middle of the day, when no further progress was made. Her pains were made more bearable by chloroform, and I administered it at every pain. The doctor said, in reply to my question whether I'd better send for Orson to administer to her, that I had, as the child's life was in danger. Helen left her ironing and went for him and Sol. Neither were at the city hall, and she left word for them. Orson soon came and administered to her, and I laying on hands with him, and the pains became more natural and effective. Sister Ship manifested the greatest skill with the assistance of her instruments. The baby's life was saved, though every sign of life was extinct when it entered the world, and for a time its case seemed hopeless. Lily knew nothing at the time it was born, being under the effects of chloroform. Had we not used it, I doubt if she could have stood the ordeal, weakened down as she was beforehand. I mailed a letter to Mrs. P. and began one to Bro P., but had to leave it, so exhaust was my body. Lily rejoiced when finding her labor over, and herself a mother to a son. It is very poor, her health having been miserable and spirits low. This is Queen Vic's birthday. Friday 22th 25th. Lily and nurse had a poor night, and so did I. Orson came and took breakfast. Lily feels very nervous, having after pains, and baby crying a good deal, is sick at its stomach, and cries most pitiful sounds, exactly like a little lamb. I planted some vine seeds, sent me by Sister Greenhalch, at the sides of my front porch and portico. A vine grows from them, bearing oranges, etc. Mailed a letter to Peyton. Saturday 26th. Another per night. Lily's baby crying, and too weak to draw the breast. I was made wakeful again till near morning. Lily, after being bathed and changed, felt brighter all day. The newborn was got to nurse late in the afternoon, which made us all glad. Sunday 27th. Quiet as usual. Bro, Sol, Flawed, and Hen came. And Mr. Brothers called this evening for the first time for a year or so. Lily doing well, and also the baby. Mon 28th. Did a hard day's work for me. Emptied the feathers from 3 or 4 pillows, besides making the cases. Lily complaining of fever and headache and terribly distressed with wind this afternoon. The babe nurses fine and no caked breasts or sore nipples. Tuesday 29th. Wash day. Pay $1 every week for that, and spent considerable for other things. Have bought strawberries pretty often ever since they were brought from Cal. Especially for Lily. She is feeling better today. The baby smiled on me today. He was weighed is 4.5 pounds in weight. Its clothes were weighed half a pound. I emptied one pillow into another and wrote a letter to Lucy W. Kimball at Logan. Emptied a third pillow of feathers into another tick. Wednesday 30th, Decoration Day. Had an awful night. Deathly spells began last evening at going to bed, and kept up all night and through the day. Flawed and Hen called and got some roses to decorate Pa's and Charlie's graves. WMH called was raging over our family graveyard, having had nothing done to it, and the family for the same. I asked him why he had not set them the example, he and Heber being really the only ones that had been able. This he did not reply to, but continued blowing the rest up, and thought the means spent on father's history had better have been used to fix the graveyard. I told him I thought differently. The books would bring the means needed, besides the land that was to be sold for that purpose. He said much more, and I told him when he left to get an umbrella and a wet sponge in his hat and try to keep cool. Flawed and Hen returned and stayed to dinner in George's. Zine came to bring little Emily to a birthday party of Elle's little Mary, who is 3 years old. Lily not so well from trouble with her kidneys. Thursday 31st. Had a good night's sleep. Had none of those deathly spells till this morning. Had one light one and another hard one after dinner. I have felt much worse today, had palpitation of the heart, and was so nervous had to take breakfast alone in my room. Lily real bad with her water. Mrs. Paramore went to drugstore twice to get things for Lily and me. Dr. Ship called, and among other things told me to get a bottle of beef, iron, and wine for myself. A letter came this morning to Lily from her husband. He'd had her name sent to the temple to be prayed for, wanted an answer by return mail telling how she and baby were, so I wrote this forenoon and sent it by Sister Paramore to mail. The funeral of Apostle Erastus Snow was held at the Tabernacle yesterday. As the procession marched from there, the band played Nearer My God to Thee. Phoebe Kimball called in to see how we were. I've had palpitation of the heart this afternoon and another of those deathly spells. Friday, the 1st day of June. This is my mother's birthday and President Brigham Young's. It is to be celebrated by the children in honor of him. My mother would been 81 and Brigham a sick day. I've had obliged to go to bed a number of times. Slept a little, which renewed me. Those deathly spells have been more frequent last night, and today taken away my desire for food. Jen proposed my taking dinner with George and hentai. I did so and ate more for it. Lily still afflicted when trying to make a little water. Her milk is more plentiful and running out of her breast. Sister Paramore gone to drugstore, and also to Dunford's to take my plate to get 2 teeth put in, and took a note for me to Brother Kirkman to draw my monthly allowance. She is in need of an order on tea. Oh, where she is willing to be paid for nursing Lilio. Saturday 2nd. Doctor called and told the nurse to get parsley root and make outward and inward application to Lily. She has been awful for half the day or more. Got immediate relief and is very comfortable. Previous to this, she expressed a wish for Orson to come and administer to her, having no faith in anything else. I wrote a note asking him to come and bring some brother with him, and that we'd like the babe blessed and named at the same time. A letter came from its father this morning bringing $5 and a request for the babe to be named Joseph, and the mother to add another if she wished. Whitney was proposed by the girls, which L. liked. This has been another sick day to me, those deathly spells continuing oftener than before. For 2 days I got desperate, and after Jen swept my room, I moved my bed the head to the west. I went to work, and by many efforts got my pictures, with Jen's assistance, hung, and furniture, etc. Dusted and set to rights. Was in pain from it, but glad to have got it done. Sunday 3D. I was better though, continued to have those spells. Soul called and sat a few minutes. Orson and Bro. Charles Stainer called on their way from the Young Men's Mutual Improvement Association conference to administer to Lily, and bless the babe. Orson was sick, the cause of his not coming yesterday. Lily was first anointed and blessed, and then her babe. They received great promises by the Spirit. Orson then proposed my being blessed. He anointed me and Brother Stainer administered, and pronounced the most encouraging blessings upon me, and that I should enjoy that of health, and began to mend from that time, etc. I asked them to administer to Sister Paramore as she was feeling poorly in body and mind. Although they had stayed longer than they felt that time would allow, they did so, and afterwards Bro. S. testified that there was a heavenly spirit here, and Orson to the same. I told them it was comforting to hear it from them, although I'd felt it. A terrible windstorm came up in the afternoon and did considerable damage in the city, tore up trees by the roots, and some houses were blown down. One was Sister Paramore's brothers, and came near killing their babe. Wrote a letter to Bro. R. Mon 4th. I had those spells all day, and they increased, coming oftener till night. Rained and hailed last night, and rained some today. Weather quite cool. Tuesday 5th. Beautiful morning. Our washing done today. I walked to news office and asked Bro. Nicholson for a few numbers of last night's news, containing minutes of the Young Men's Mutual Improvement Association conference, and a blank book. He gave me several numbers and 2 of the latter. I told him I'd had no use for them for a long time, but thought I might some time. He again repeated what he'd said long ago, that whenever I wanted anything of that kind, or papers, to come to him. I went to Exoff and stayed quite a while. Sisters Olson and the wife of President who entertained me in Fillmore when I was down there called there, said they were just going to call on me, so they stayed there a little while. Wednesday 6th. I took another walk to see the car. I afterwards went to call on Hall of the Valley House, found him and wife gone to Cannon, left my name called into the T.O. store partly to rest. and got a bottle of Richardson's cough medicine and came home tired out, but glad I'd been to visit the car. The home products being well worth the going near night. Went out and picked some roses to carry with me to call on Mrs. Hutchison across the road. Found her gone. With husband to the race, stayed till they returned. They were pleased to see me. She hugged and kissed me, and I her she is thinner and poorer in flesh than when she first came from Denver. Hutchison says he likes Salt Lake better than any place he ever lived in. He takes his wife out riding to save Dr. bills. He says he likes this neighborhood the best, it being the place where he first lived, with us, and it being near the mill where he works. Thursday 7th, fast day, but we ate a light breakfast which Jen had already. When I got up I coughed worse yesterday and in the night, also Lily, and Jen's baby having taken more cold. Lily was awful sick Tuesday night and part of Wednesday from taking cold and stopping flowing. Sent for doctor yesterday morning, and she ordered Tansy, etc., though she'd got relief from pain as soon as she began flowing. The babe is growing. Forgot to mention doing up several packages of papers yesterday, and a letter I wrote to Sister Wiley on Rock All. Another thing I forgot, Lucy W. Kimball, who wrote me an answer to my letter sent last Tuesday, said she'd given my name to be prayed for in the temple at Logan, which would be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday the present week between the hours of 12 and 1. This that I could unite with them in faith to overcome those awful sinking spells and regain my strength. Dr. Barney called to see if I'd like to go to our meeting, but I declined, the wind being too strong and there being need of my help at home to take care of babies. Got rheumatism in neck and shoulders. Friday 8th. Still the rheumatism in shoulders and neck. We had a rain last night with thunder and lightning, and a lovely day after it. Commenced some sewing, and Dr. Barney came to see if I'd go with her to Cottonwood, and I hastily ate some lunch with strawberries and went. We had a lovely ride all the way on the state road. Called at Frank's, going Sister Angie not very well. We spent the afternoon at Bro Freeze's place, had a pleasant visit with Sister Lily Freeze. Took supper and returned, having rode 14 miles. Saturday 9th. Beautiful day. I took my work and sat out on the lawn to watch Jen's babe and warm myself. Darned all the stockings. Jen went to get groceries and telegraphed to Ed, as she's had no letter for more than a fortnight, and worried about him. Lily is feeling fine, has been out of bed part of the time this 3 days, though not able to dress till today. We feast upon strawberries. I indulge because my appetite has been poor, and they're so short-lived anyhow. I sent some to a sick sister yesterday morning who lays in the emigrant house, and some bread and butter. Sister Paramore took them, and afternoon took some custard and fruit pie, and cake of Jen's make. She told Sister Paramore that she'd never received such kindness as she had here in all the time she'd lived in England. She is weak and has a dreadful cough. I told Sister P, as she was going this morning, to see her to inquire if any other sister had visited her, and she said, yes, one more, which was Sister Kimball, Mary Ellen, of course. Sunday 10th. A lovely day. Soul called as usual. David's wife, Cad, and 2 youngest children arrived from Soda Springs this morning. They were brought from the depot by Phoebe Kimball. I attended the meeting at Tabernacle this afternoon, could not hear much, and got very tired on returning. Called at Phoebe's to see Cad. We were rejoiced to meet again. She has her 2 youngest children with her. Jen went to evening meeting in the chapel. Mon 11th, received a letter from Lil's husband, and answered it. Cad and children came and stayed a while. Flawed called, and I gave her money to buy me a dress. This is Clark Whitney's 14th birthday. His mother has allowed him to give a party, and they have commenced the entertainment now. 7 o'clock. Girls most in number. I think Dr. Barney just called to see if I'd go with her to Cottonwood at 9 o'clock in the morning to attend the Weil Society at that place. I promised to go. Tuesday 12th. Started a few minutes after 9 o'clock for Cottonwood. Had an enjoyable ride. There were very few at the forenoon meeting, but afternoon some more of the young, as well as the older, were present. We tooed refreshments in the vestry, had sights of strawberries and cream. Had a better meeting afternoon, much more spirit to speak than in the morning. Wednesday 13th. While taking breakfast, Emmeline Wells came to see if I'd go to Granger with Sisters Sarah Kimball and B. Smith. I consented, and Sister Porter called for me after 11 o'clock. We had a lovely drive to and from Granger. Her husband, going with us, took dinner 2 miles this side of Meeting House. The BP, Bro. McRae. Bro Wallace, with a number of brethren, attended. I was the second speaker. Expressed my pleasure at having so many brethren holding the priesthood present, as I found greater strength to speak relying on their faith. I certainly felt the difference speaking with freedom, and more to my satisfaction than I did in the morning at Cottonwood. There were a number of the sisters and brethren spoke after us. We took supper at the same place as dinner, and returned to the city on good time. Thursday, 14th. My father's 87th birthday. Sister Hinckley from Fillmore visited me this afternoon. Helen and children gone to Calder's farm with children and Sunday school of the 18th Ward. I gave Florence money last Tuesday to get me a dress. She brought it, and trimmings that day, also a bonnet to correspond, which she will trim and make me a present of, if I'll wear it. Lily was quite sick yesterday. Friday, 15th. Worked on Jen's dress half the day, then dressed to go to the 19th Ward to meet with the Relief Society by invitation, but when ready was so tired was obliged to stay at home. My sister Alice called this afternoon. She is one of the dearest women on earth. Worked more on Jen's dress, and called over to Phoebe's. Mary Kay was in her front yard, and I asked her to go along. Sister Paramore left this evening, and I commenced taking her place. Lily and baby sleep with me, and Jen takes their bed. Mr. Hutchison sent us a plate of fresh trout in the evening by his stepdaughter. Saturday, 16th. Finished Jen's wrapper, did part of the cleaning of my west room, too tired to finish CAD, and Phoebe Kimball spent a while here this afternoon. I dreamed last night of walking through deep snow carrying a large fowl, turkey I think, that had lain in my house till it was becoming putrid, and thought to bury it. I thought the snow was as high as a fence, 3 or 4 feet high. I walked through it, but I was very feeble and fell down, and the awful thought that it might fall upon me, and no power to help myself appalled me. I despaired making my voice heard, but in desperation I thought I'd try, and I was heard by someone at my house, and relief came. A peculiar dream, and one of meaning. Sunday, 17th. Soul came and stayed a little while as usual. A $40,000 fire this morning on Main Street. Mon 18th. Felt the loss of sleep somewhat, and tired out from working. After resting on the lounge an hour or so, made me an undergarment. Flawed came up and stayed a while. Jen took her baby to get his picture this forenoon. Helen went with hers, but failed getting them taken. Tuesday, 19th. A hard day's work tending babies, making another garment, and doing other things. Had our washing done. Wind blew dust, and the clothesline fell with wet clothes on. The washwoman had to wash them over. The rain came, and she had to wait for it till subsided, and Jen had them to put out, as it was still raining when the woman left. Cleared off towards night. Flawed came for me to go and trade, but found me with my hands full of babies and work. Wednesday, 20th. Stormed last night, rain and hail, cold morning, winter dresses, and fire comfortable. Mary Kimball came in to see how I felt over my city taxes, said hers was $27, felt quite excited over it. I think I'll have to get a poorer place if taxes are to increase like this. Mine and Mary Whitney's are the same, $27, did more sewing today. Thursday, 21st. Flawed came this morning for me to go home with her, and she'd take me to Coop and to dressmakers, etc. I helped her by picking over strawberries to put up, and after dinner went to get measured for my dress, then to Simon's store to try some bonnets, as Flawed proposed making me a present of one to match my brown dress. Got one to suit her, with velvet and feathers, which she took home to trim. Bought some calico for dresses, and the Good Sense corded corset waist to try it. My father died 20 years ago today. Tomorrow his history, which Orson is writing, will be finished in a few days. A letter came for me from Mrs. Peyton. Friday, 22. Cool weather nights. Soul called. I feel poorly, tire out, and have to lay down every day. Bought a bottle of polish of an agent for 50 cds. Jen is expecting to go to Ed in Aspen, he writing to that effect. Sat 23D. Had a hard job cleaning my room, though Jen swept the most of it. Phoebe and Kimball took dinner with us and spent the afternoon. Sunday, 24th. Had a sick day part of the time spent on the bed at Eve. Dr. Barney called to see if I'd like to go to meeting in our chapel, decided to thinking it might help me. And being the first time I'd had the chance to ride there felt better for it. Met Zine and Orson afterwards. Sister Barney took me a ride. We stopped to look at Sister Di's lovely place. And she came and invited us to go in and view the same. Was perfectly charming. Went from there to Sister Mary Free's where I visited while Doctor took a young friend a ride. Came home after dark. Mon 25th. Not able to sit up most of the day. Better towards Eve and cut me out a calico wrapper. Bro Patterson called to see me. Tuesday 26th. Jen did our washing. Our washerwoman having grown careless and nearly ruined our white clothes using too much lye and soap and too little muscle. Sister Angie Frank came and spent part of the day. She bought my gold-bowed glasses. I went over to Mr. Hutchison's at dusk. Jen had been and Mrs. H. wished me to come. She treated us both to cake and beer, begged me to come often being an invalid and so lonely. Wednesday 27th. Hot weather and too little of the blessings so needed, sleep, to keep me up. Mary's boarders or some and Fred Clausen to boot make nights hideous for us. Zena Whitney and children came and spent the day, pleased to see them. Lil's baby growing finally weighed him yesterday, being a month old, weighed 7.5 pounds, clothes half a pound. Zine brought us some raspberries grown on their place. Basted my wrapper in part. Thursday 28. Did more work this afternoon, nearly finished my wrapper, tired out with that tending to the babies and other chores. Was kept awake again by the people at my left last night, was sick the whole forenoon from it, felt desperate, and think I'll have to move from here if things go on this way. Besides, the taxes will compel me to if nothing else. Jen and Babe went out riding at Eve with George and Hent. They met Flawed and she wants me to be ready tomorrow at 12 o'clock. She'll send for me to go to her house and visit with Mrs. Jennings and others. Friday 29th. Finished a letter to P. Before dressing for Flawed's was sent for at 2 o'clock. Was first to arrive. Mrs. Jennings first, did not come, had a prior engagement. All her daughters were there, also 3 or 4 others. Mrs. de Benedict was one. Enjoyed conversing with Mrs. Eldrig, oldest daughter of Jennings Disguised. She was the first to seek it, said she'd wished so much to become acquainted and talk with me. Our talk was upon the gospel principles and both enjoyed it. Sat 30th. I went to the coop and did some trading. Met Orson. He told me his birthday was tomorrow. I had not thought of this being the last of June. He said, I was born in 1855 and am 33 years old in the year 1888. Figures meeting each time makes it a little peculiar. Called at T.O. on the way back and got an electric belt left there for me by Sister Schrocks, who called the other day to tell me she was going to put it in on tithing and wanted I should have it. The price was $5, just half what they used to be. She came as agreed to give me some directions how to use it. A friend of Mr. Beard's of Indiana called on me with a letter of introduction from the former. He had a photo of Beard's father entrusted to him to bring to me, but forgot it and left it at the White House and wanted to know where he could leave it. He was told that he could leave it at Spencer's shoe shop. Sunday, July 1st. Cool and pleasant. My electric belt quieted my nerves and I slept soundly. Put it on this morning and wore it over 2 hours, and after getting tired laid down and slept. Think night the best time, though the agent told me to use it mornings. Orson is 33 years old this eve. Mon 2nd. Worked about the house till I was tired. Went to T.O. and to X off. I paid $10 in gold on my back tithing. Got 15 CTS in mutton chops at market. Came home tired out. Afternoon. Flawed came and took me to dressmakers to have dress fitted on the way they're called at Spencer's shoe shop, and got the steel engraving of Mr. W.M.H. Beard's father left there by the gentleman whom he sent it by. Tuesday 3D. Jen did the washing and Lil the housework, and I took care of the babies. Flawed called and invited me to go with her in the morning to witness the marching, etc. Wed 4th. Kept awake most of last night by guns and firecrackers. This the hottest day we have had. Started out at 9 o'clock and went about viewing the gathering of the procession till satisfied, then went to the park like hundreds of others to get a good place and witness the arrival of procession. We were ordered out of the way and drove north a few rods and met the procession. The band frightened our horse and he began backing and rearing up cross sideways over 2 deep places and up over 2 rajas and a young sapling, when the horse was caught and held by a man and I got out. And Flawed too. Just then we saw her father-in-law Dinwiddie, who took the horse and fastened it to the fence. We waked to the stand, quite a stretch for my strength. I was delighted with the out etc. till I'd sat for 2 hours and more, and heard nothing of the speeches, only the constant chatting of Scandinavians. Squalling of babies, the band being the only refreshing treat for 4 hours or more. Vlad had gone home, and I, weary and dusty and sunburned, was glad when Hen appeared, telling me he'd come for me. Rode home in a 2-wheeled cart without any shade. My face was red, and smarting applied cream to it after bathing, glad to be home and lay off my dusty apparel. I broke my fast near 4 o'clock and rested a while. Then helped the girls picking over red currants to can, which Jen did before night. Thursday 5th, fast day. Was to have gone with Dr. Barney to attend R.S. meeting at Sister Frank's in Farmer's Ward, but excused myself, being too busy helping Jen out with sewing, as she expects to start Monday next for Aspen. Colonel worked hard all day, made each of the babes a pillow and 2 cases for little Eddies. Worked on Jen's wrapper and did other jobs, and helped take care of children. Helen gone to attend Grandma Bourne's funeral with George, leaving Braddy here. He went to sleep in my arms at dusk, as we were eating lunch, being tired out. Friday 6th. Another busy day, and a warm one too, though not so bad as the 4th and 5th. Sat 7th. Felt very poorly, but worked most of the time near night. Swept my large room and moved everything, but the secretary Flawed brought my new tailor-made dress, and I sent the pay by her, amounting to $4.60. Jen went to see Orson about my tea. Oh, orders, he told her that bro Peyton had them, so she walked up there, and he sent 3 months' allowance to me, and Mary each $20 a month. Sunday 8th. Was sick, but dusted my room and did other things, but I had to lay down numbers of times. Orson, Zine, and Brother Arthur Stainer called after meeting. The former to bid Jen goodbye. Flawed and Hen were already here. Sister Paramore came last evening, remained all night. Mon 9th. I was taken a ride last eve by Dr. Barney, did me good, packed Jenny's big trunk standing in the hot kitchen, had to stop and lay down numbers of times, still am lots better than yesterday. Jen had numbers of callers to bid her goodbye. Flawed and Hen came, and by my wish gathered a lot of apples to take home and make jelly of. Part for me, I've given away lots, the wind blowing them off. Have 2 trees, early harvest, and WM's favorite. Jen spent a while after 9 o'clock at L's by invitation, with a few others, George and Helen with them. Lil and I up late taking care of babies, took a bath near 11 o'clock. Tuesday 10th. The parting is over. Jen got our breakfast for the last time. I dressed her baby and tended him till starting hard to have to part. Lily takes it hard. She nursed him last night, as she's done a number of times, increasing her attachment to him. Her own baby is growing fat and round as a little pig. I felt this forenoon no spirit or strength to go to work, and gave vent to my grief, but went trough the work after a number of trials. My back pains me at every effort, and I have to lay down before it's better. Jenny wanted me to write in little Eddie's album, so yesterday I wrote the following. My little sweetheart, may thy bright soul be ever pure and lovely as thy form. May Father guide thee evermore, and shield thee from all harm. Your Grandma, S.L. City. July 9th. 1888. Wednesday 11th. Windy and cloudy, feel lonely, but more calm. Prayed often yesterday that we might be reconciled and rise above our sorrow. It seemed as if we'd had a death in the family. Lil and I slept in Jen's bed to get away from the noise in Mary's yard. Had a warm, stifling time most of the night. Baby cried, and Lil not being able to stop him, I lit the lamp and took him. When he began smiling, when I blew it out, he began to cry. Showing that there was nothing else the matter, I took him across my breast, and he soon went to sleep. I had left the bed previously and laid on the lounge, where I'd slept better than on the bed, and gave Lil a chance for more air. She was up before I awoke, and getting breakfast has done splendid, though she's tired out yesterday completely. Helen and children went to the lake after dinner. Clouds have all disappeared. I took to the bed this forenoon, where I've had to lay in consequence of the piles, the pain most distressing when sitting up. Thursday 12th. Suffering from piles and bowel complaint. Lil taken with the latter yesterday morning. She received a letter from her husband yesterday, and the reply was mailed today. Caroline Kimball and children spent the best part of this day with me and took dinner at Mary W.'s. She left for Soda Springs by the 4 o'clock train. I paid a hackman $1 to take them to the depot today. Mr. Charles Whitney, grandson of Uncle Sam Whitney, called here, and at Mary's Melwoods brought him. He stayed only a minute. He bears a strong resemblance to his grandfather, and BPN, K. Whitney has a nose like them, but is more handsome. Friday 13th, received a telegram from Jen saying she'd arrived safely at Aspen yesterday. Lil and I washed baby's diapers. She stands the work better today, has been tired out, and her ankles and feet swelled and pained her every day. I felt very poorly half the day, making life a drag. Concluded to send for the young woman, Miss Carpenter, from Chemos, who offered to live with me some time ago. Another package of my books were sent for by Abram Cannon at evening. Miss Carpenter came and informed me that Sister Pack had taken a boarder and probably expected her to stay. I told her I would not take her if Sister P wanted her. Saturday 14th. Commenced having deathly spell after retiring terrible ones all night. Took my breakfast in bed, after which I arose, and the work laying before me not being able to get any help caused me to feel that maybe the Lord wanted to try my faith, or the evil one was seeking to discourage me, and I felt a willpower possess me, and took myself to work cleaning my room, and nearly finished before I sat down, and then it was to take the babe for Lil to put dinner on the table. I never got through before without having to stop and rest, and I gave Father the thanks. After dinner I washed window kills, mopboards, doors, and looking glass, and had numbers of those deathly spells through the day. Took a ride with Flawed, and called at Orson's. Sunday 15th, wrote to Jen after noon. Took care of Helen's children while she went to meeting, though feeling weak and nervous from those faint spells. They were physir, and not so terrible as at first. After meeting the wife of lawyer Richards late from Washington, called here to invite me to Ogden, also Orson and Zine, thinking they lived here, to attend a confer of the R.S. in commemoration of its organization by President B. Young years ago. Mon 16th, spent a sick day, but did a few things in spite of it. One was to fix some poison to kill mice in trying to lift one end of the trapdoor, now in two pieces under the stairs, to put it down. The other end of the board went down, letting down some things, 2 or 3 packages of my books among them, making a mess indeed, which I felt little able to attend to. 2 feather beds and numerous things I took out. After dinner got Bro W. ailing to go down and bring up the things. He found some of my bound books down there loose. After fixing the trapdoor, he fixed back the things for me, after which I moved my chest and trunk and swept the hall. Flawed called and took Lil a ride. On her return, she saw me on the portico looking so sick. She inquired what the matter was. My heart palpitated, and I felt very sinking most of the day. Mailed my letter to Jen, and wrote a postal to Mrs. Talbot at Denver, informing her of O.D.S. and Zine's trip there this week, etc. Tuesday 17th. Lovely nights. We have feel better. Bought $1 worth of black currants, prepared them, and put them scalding. Cleaned the glass jars, and Helen put them up for me. I shelled peas and put them on for dinner, and washed out 2 white dresses, pining blanket, and pair of stockings for Lil, or her baby dress to go out. Some expecting Flawed to take me, as she said she would if she could. She came, and Orson called in the meantime to bid us goodbye, embrace me, and bless me. Leaves in the morning. Lil and baby Hattie and little Helen went along afterwards. Little Bratty we first called at Exoff saw M. Wells, and she informed me that I was to go to Bro Cope and secure a ticket for a free pass. Called, and he was not there. Found Dr. Pratt there on the same business, but not Cope. Left my name and called again. Got ticket, which will hold good till. We went to see Washwoman about clothes, and to see Whitewasher Simpson, who is to send a man in the morning to whitewash my kitchen. I felt better for writing. There's to be quite a company going up to attend the meeting. Wednesday 18th. Worked all day, though frequently having a faint spell, but they're so much lighter. Lil washed things for baby and I ironed them. Flawed came and brought my new bonnet. Went and bought me a pair of velvet slippers at Teasdale's. Bid us goodbye. She and Hen start for Meadowville in the morning. He goes as a drummer. Thursday 19th. Slept poorly this 2 nights. Was up early, and George took me to the depot where there were a number of sisters before me. Sister Dunford's daughter Mrs. sat with me, and we were engaged in conversation so that we were in Ogden before we knew it. Apostle Heber Grant and President Angus Cannon and Dr. Isaacson were along. We were met and escorted in carriages to the tabernacle. This was in commemoration of the organization of the R.S. and primary by B. Young. I was called up to speak in the forenoon, felt well, and was told by Sister Richards, president, that I spoke good. Sister Fries said she never heard me speak so well. This was comforting as I feel that I cannot speak only by the Holy Spirit. Bro. F. Richards introduced the speakers after I'd sat down. He rose and told the congregation that I was the daughter of Heber C. Kimball. We took dinner in an adjoining meeting house. Afternoon meeting lasted from 2 till 5. When we took lunch before starting home while eating, a woman came and asked me if I knew her. I told her that her face looked familiar, but I could not place her, when she informed me she was Dr. Ezra Williams' wife, though she left him years ago. Numbers came and spoke to me, who felt they knew me from having read my writings in the Exponent. We enjoyed the day, and on our arrival in the city, President Angus Cannon invited me to ride home in his buggy, for which I was grateful. Met Bro. Dinwiddie at the depot, and he asked me if I had any way of riding home. I thanked him and told him I was to ride with President Cannon. When arriving in the city, was surprised to find the ground wet with a shower, and my folks were surprised to see me back the same day. Friday 20th. I cleaned the floor and mopboard to the kitchen, ripped the big dining room carpet apart, and washed it after it had soaked a while, dried it, and would have put it down had it not been for my big stove being in the middle of the room. But I'd done enough, and George said he was glad the stove was there to keep me from doing any more. I astonished them as well as myself by the day's work that I'd done, when in the morning I felt hardly able to clean the floor, and had a stitch in my left hip and hurt me whenever I bent over. Saturday 21st, was perfectly tired out the night before, but felt no worse for it in the morning. Patched and pieced the carpet, put it down, tacked a large oilcloth down, and cleaned the furniture. Numbers of times felt overdone, but rested a little and got up and at it again till dark, when I was completely used up. Sunday 22nd. Had to sweep and dust the 2 front rooms. It's a marvel that I've got through so much work without being sick after laying down a while dressed, and spent the afternoon reading. Toward night, Dr. Barney called to see if I'd like to go to meeting in our chapel. I accepted. Bro. Morris, owner of the mill above us, preached a good sermon. After the close, was invited by Sister Staines to her house, where Dr. B. called for me and brought me home. At meeting, I met Sol's mother-in-law and 2 of her daughters up from Mesa, Mon 23D. The stores all closed till after the 24th. George and family left this morning for the Cannon, the house empty and Lil, and I lonely, none with us but baby, and dog Tige received a letter from Jen describing her journey and experience from here to Aspen, which was miserable enough, making her and baby sick, but all right now. I forgot to mention the moving of our back house last Friday by Bro, Eileen, and George. I pay the former $1.50, gave him 50 CTS in cash to pay a debt, though he is owing me back rent. Mary K. came and sat a while. Mary E. Kimball called to read a letter from Bro. Abe took dinner with us afternoon. A band of music struck up and played just as they passed Mary's and my house. They were driven by Brother Charlie Kimball behind 2 span of beautiful white horses. It never struck me that it meant anything till Mary W. said she thought it was in honor of Horace as a pioneer. The thought of this and of Horace being gone, and nearly all of the pioneers, touched a chord in my heart that my eyes swelled with tears in an instant. Sad, sad. Indeed is the thought that so many who pioneered to these valleys have passed on to the next stage, and so few left to celebrate its 41st natal day. Tuesday 24th. Driven up early again by the baby. He is 2 months old today. Attended the celebration of the 41st anniversary of the entrance of the pioneers into the Valley of the Great Salt Lake. Was quite affected by the sight of the old flag, the stars and stripes worn in holes and soiled by age and use, which was raised upon soil outside of the United States, then Mexican, by our brave, loyal, and honored sires who pioneered the way to this then wild and uncivilized country. The first plowshare that was used here was exhibited, and also a buffalo's head. Mary W. invited me to go to the theater, but I feel too much the want of sleep. I took lunch down there this evening. Wednesday 25th. Horace's birthday. He'd been 65 had he lived. 41 years ago today he entered this valley, was kept back with the mountain fever till the 2nd day. After doing some sewing, went over packs of newspapers, picking out the best parts to send away. Awful tiresome job. Went down to X off. And got the last number, went to the fruit department in T. Oh. Got 2 pounds blue plums at 10 CTS a pound. And $1 worth of English currants, got a boy to bring them over, went to work at picking them off the stems, worked till 12 o'clock before they were done, washed them ready to put up in the morning, groaned in pain long before they were finished. Lil helped a little, but I made her go to bed as she was tired and sleepy. Thursday 26. Felt miserable, but put up 6 quarts of currants and a pint of blue plums, lounged for some time, was so tired out. Received another letter from Jen and one for Lil written on the 22nd, and a letter and pamphlet from Bro Thompson in Logan. The letter contained $5. I looked over a lot of papers and picked out some to send to Gentiles. Felt very much exhausted near night. Friday 27th. Lil and I together washed a lot of diapers, and I washed 2 white dresses and a nightgown for baby, also some handkerchief, stockings, and an apron. Have not felt able. And it has gone hard with both of us, added to other things. Toward night, went to Coop for coffee and sugar, etc. Bought myself and Lil each a wrapper ready-made. Washed my head today, directed parcels of news and X to send away, and got Bro William Allen to mail them. Saturday 28th. A hard day for Lil and me, bring poorly. My head ached and I felt feverish, taken cold. After my cleaning was done, had to alter my wrapper. Hired a woman to come and clean the porch and other things, which I was unable to do. She asked only 75 CTS as she didn't come early in the morning. I gave her $1. Thought me a good woman. I told her I considered her work worth, that I appreciate being clean. Received a Logan journal from Bro P. Louis, called this eve. Brought me a dish of apricots. Says she and Fred Barton expect to marry when his mother arrives home from England. Sunday 29th. Souls spent a while with us. Phoebe K. called to see us, is just home from Bear Lake. She saw Flawed and Hen in Meadowville. They put up at Harriet K's. Lil and I being faggied out from work, and too little sleep. Laid down afternoon, but couldn't sleep much. I read some in the Bible and document and covenants. Took pencil and paper and commenced an article for publication, the first for many months. Mon 30th. Lil and I feeling sick for want of sleep. Sister Dinwiddie called to see if I'd go home with her and spend the day. I accepted, and Lil urged me to go. An old friend of hers and a young man were there on a visit from Wyoming. After dinner, I was so overcome with sleepiness. Sister D invited me into the little parlor to lay on the lounge. I napped for an hour and got up refreshed. Found a blanket for Elle's baby with white ribbon. After tea, she was to take us a ride, but it rained a little and looked threatening, so she took me to see my washwoman about the clothes she'd missed bringing to me. Found her gone to the lake from there, returned home. Tuesday 31. Lil being worn out with babe, I took him towards morning and got him to sleep, but awoke before sunrise and I've felt sick again for want of sleep. Lily too, but no sleep today. Ripped sleeves out of my wrapper and made them smaller. Baby worrisome, distressed with wind. Wednesday, August 1st. We had a little rain yesterday. The folks have had it heavy up the cannon, the atmosphere cooler from it. Another weary day is past, work goes hard. Thursday 2nd. Fast day. Mary E. Kimball called and read a letter from Bro Abe, and one to him from Apostle Lyman, reproving him for yielding to despondency. I nearly finished my Shermie, began yesterday after resting from the morning chores. Cloudy and lightning with slight thunder. Friday 3D. Lil and I washed today, quite a wash we had too. It went very hard. One would rest a little while the other worked till it was done. I had to lay down twice and again before I could eat dinner. Was 3 o'clock when I ate, but the washing was out and we felt thankful. George fixed the hose so I could water my lawn. All over, water very scarce of late. Saturday 4th. Baby routed us early as usual. I put the water on the lawn and there was so much of it separated the hose in front of George's east door and flooded the yard before I knew it. Received a letter from Hen Tai, who is still in the cannon. She told me some news about herself that surprised us. I've taken Jen's bedstead down and rolled the mattress up and wound a rope around it and packed all the things into George's dining room for him. Bro, Eileen to take upstairs, tied the springs up together, intending to sell them the first chance. I was so sick from doing this work had to lay down, and it was not till long after noon that I could sit up with any comfort. Then I did some ironing, swept, and moved everything in the dining room, swept parlor, and dusted. George paid me $5 for rent. I paid Mary W. 10 CTS for ice, and applied some eggs that she borrowed, at her request, towards paying for it. Sun 5th. Rested from my labor. Soul made me quite a visit, told me things that surprised me. Lou Stenhouse and Fred Barton called on their way to the streetcar. They had 3 lovely bunches of flowers, and the wreath given Lou off from Charlie's coffin, recovered with beautiful flowers that they were taking to place on his grave where they'd started for. Mon 6th. Had an awful dream of Jenny. A letter came from her to Helen. I read it before sending it by George. This morning Helen sent one for me to direct to Jen, and I wrote and enclosed a letter with it to her just as I sealed it. The postman came with hers to Hent. Wrote to Bro. Robert T. Tuesday 7th. Went to X off. And got my papers, then to Saracie's and got cakes and crackers and candy for cough. Called it tea. Oh, got a mutton roast, and so tired could hardly get home. Wednesday 8th. The weather is quite cool. Nights. Got rheumatism in my left shoulder blade this morning, though I put on my black skirt and jersey yesterday, my calico being too cool. There was an article in Monday's news describing the scenes through to Denver on the I'd read it nearly through wondering who that punster was, when I looked at the signature, G.L. Driver. And the truth flashed into my cranium. It was Orson's, he having told me that he'd promised sketches of his route to and through Colorado to the D. News. It has been 3 weeks today since he left, and he expected to be back in 2 weeks. Hope they've had a pleasant time while out. Thursday 9th. Orson arrived home yesterday, called last evening looking splendid. Enjoyed the trip. I bought some blue plums to preserve 40 CTS a peck. Did some little writing. Went over to Phoebe's a few minutes, feeling better, did not have to lay down today. Lil's baby has colic a good deal. He's getting to be very interesting. Friday 10th. Had preserves to make. Got the white clothes a soaking, pouring on them hot water with soap dissolved and coal oil, half a bar soap and 3 tablespoonfuls of coal oil to a boiler of hot water. The woman engaged to come this afternoon didn't get here till nearly 4 o'clock. I had to lay down tired out. When she came, got up and washed baby's diaties. Lil had sick headache today, but did kitchen work all the same. Zena Whitney sent me a white crepe necktie by Racy. Got it in Denver. I suppose the washing wasn't finished and out till after 9 o'clock. Lily helped put out clothes. Saturday 11th. Was so tired and nervous that I slept poorly. I cleaned the big room this forenoon. And Lil the others. She cleaned the doorsteps, and I scrubbed the west platform, and swept the back porch, and put things to rights. After laying down a while to rest, we did some ironing, and I a little sewing and darning of stockings. Near night, Flawed drove up, said they got home last night. She'd been cleaning her house all day. Sunday 12th. No one here but Lil and me till towards night. Josh and Mary Jane grew, and little boy Roscoe came up. Lil took dinner at the other house. Mary invited me, but I declined. Yesterday, and talking of how hard it was to get things to suit our taste, or to think of anything we wanted where there was only 2 of us, etc., Mary said, "Suppose you bored with me?" I replied that I'd like Lily to get dinner there, as she was nursing baby and needed nourishing food more than she had. Mon 13th. Went to Phoebe Kimball's. Found Tess had a daughter born last night at 12. Wrote a little, and did a little ironing, etc. Tuesday 14th. Storm been threatening, was taken to Cottonwood by Hen. Dinwiddie's bro to a surprise on Sister Howard. A large company was there, quite a number of brethren, among them Apostle F. Richards and Press. Angus Cannon had table set in the grove. The wind came and hurried us to the house at the close of the repast. Were just taking ice cream, got under shelter just in time to escape clouds of dust. Rain poured down, and some few started home in the worst of it. Sister Frink was there, and I, having informed her that my escort had returned to the city, and I wouldn't allow him to take the trouble to come back for me, mentioned it to Sister James, who sat by the side of us at supper. Bro James came and invited me to ride in their covered carriage, which I appreciated. It rained all the way home, and I found a freshet running into my gate onto the lawn. Wednesday 15th. Quite warm, but had another rainstorm. There was considerable damage done to houses, and numbers of persons paralyzed by the lightning freaks. Thursday and Friday worked some of the time making blouse for Lil, like her black skirt, and we did a small washing today. Received a letter from General Flawed and Hen. Called towards night. She'd had a dream of me that troubled her. She saw me floating down a large stream of water running down the road in front of my house. Charlie was with her, and she tried to make him realize as she did the danger I was in, but he was indifferent to her cries to help me. And when she told him I would drown, he said, "Well, she will go with me." At that, she said she would not let me go with him. She got me out, but found me dead, worked over me till I came to life. And told Charlie, "There, I told you shouldn't have her." Saturday 18th. Worked the forenoon, left my room unswept to go to 14th Ward to our meeting. Was so tired, nearly gave it up, but prayed for strength, took a bath and started. Brother Frank and wife had been to T.O. and overtook me between there and Coop. Their carriage being there, he drove me to the meeting. Had a good time. I had great freedom in speaking. After it closed, was brought as far as Coop through the kindness of Sister Freeze, where I had to stop to trade G. Bourne gave me $5 towards this month's rent, called at Scracey's and bought some cakes, etc. Received a letter from Mary E. Bond of Kirtland. Sunday 19th. Attended meeting at Tabernacle. The second speaker was Orson, who took up the subject of the other, a Bro Morgan, on the sin of Sabbath breaking, etc. Mon 20th. Florence came in the afternoon and insisted upon Lil and myself going home with her to stop a few days. She took her and baby while I stayed and got things prepared to take. She took me to see our washwoman about my clothes, found she'd been sick, wind blowed, and I took more cold. Tuesday 21st. Flawed took Lil a ride, then we went up to Orson's. Didn't go in, but Zine said he had been home since yesterday, had a fever and not able to go to work. Wednesday 22nd. My 60th birthday, felt sick all day, took more cold last evening. Lil has too, and feels badly, but helped Flawed to do housework. The ladder wash today. After dinner we started for City Creek Canyon, 5 or 6 miles up, where George and family and numbers more are tenting out. She gave me $5 as a birthday gift. Helen had croqueted a cape of fine black yarn with black satin ribbon for trimming and presented it to me when we arrived. They are pleasantly situated. We stayed 2 hours, spent part of the time at M. Piper's. On our way back, called at my home. I went in to get some things and found a letter from Jen slipped under the door by the postman. Thursday 23d. Felt sick most of the day, took quinine and gave it to Lil, who also has a cold. Juliet Croxall came and spent the afternoon. I forgot to mention her calling to see me yesterday with a nice embroidered handkerchief, a birthday token of remembrance, very kind. I was not there, but met her afterwards on our way back to Flawed's. Friday 24th. Joseph 3 months old this eve. I feel sick, continuing to take quinine, took a bath, and also Lil before dinner. Baby troubled much of the time with wind, but grows all the same. Arrived home about 4 o'clock. Flawed called at drugstore and got me a box of Dr. Morse's Indian root pills. I sent over to ask Mr. Hutchison if he was about to order some beer to order me a box at the same time. Saturday 25th. Got up with an awful headache, worse than ever got, but little work done besides the usual routine, and tending baby. Managed to bottle some herb beer, which I steeped Monday, and put the same down cellar. Lily feels poorly but washed baby's diapers and dress for Sunday. Towards evening, Miss Hutchison came over with 2 bottles of lager beer, saying her father sent them. He had ordered a box for me, but they missed bringing it. I was just wishing they'd come, with some feeling as though I couldn't eat lunch without. I took a glass with bread and butter, and before I was through with it my headache had all gone, when the truth flashed upon my mind that not drinking it, after being accustomed to at supper and sometimes dinner, and dropping it so sudden, was the cause of my sickness. Took pills morning and evening. Sun 26th. Feel weak but no headache. Spent a quiet day. No one came but Sister P. She had been to meeting, manifested a different spirit than when calling before, made a great fuss over baby. Hear that Orson is still home but better. Mon 27th. I wrote to Jen and mailed it with 1 cent by Hent for me to address. Hent wrote me a short letter. L. received a letter, and IA postal. The latter informed me that Charlie's picture would be delivered the 5th of September, and the writer thinks it will give satisfaction. George says Hent and children will be home tomorrow. He brought his shirt for me to sew up some tears in one sleeve. Lil feels very weak and dragged with nursing baby. Miss Hutchison brought a couple more bottles of lager beer. They'll let me have half the box as mine did not come when ordered. Was glad to get it. Both L. and myself feeling faint, we had lunch. Lou Stenhouse called to see us. She seems unhappy between the memory of Charlie and thinking of marrying Fred Barton. Soul called, said Orson was better. Tuesday 28th. The washwoman came to do my washing. She was going to wash for Mary W. the next day, and being very tired, I asked her to stop all night, which she was glad to do. Helen and family moved home today from the Cannon. Wednesday 29th. Letters came to Helen and me from Jenny. Finished my article for publication, the subject being the signs of the times and the necessity of every soul obtaining a knowledge for themselves that this latter-day work is true to be able to endure to the end, quoted from early teachings of the prophet Joseph. Heard that Orson was confined to his room. Thursday 30th. Flawed came and took me to see Orson, found him sitting in a big chair, but very feeble, has a light touch of typhoid fever. Bro. Simons was there, he administered to him, his fever is lighter, he says. Racy had a cold and was administered to. Zine was going to Warm Springs and expressed a wish for me to stay with Orson, so Flawed left me as she had to go home. Had quite a visit previous to their leaving though. Orson had the members of the house come into prayers, he being mouthed though sitting in his chair. He said the destroyer had taken advantage of his being sick and no family prayers, and he was pleased to get this advantage. I read my article to him. He said it was good, but I wouldn't be able to get it published now, as there were some strong hits in it, this I knew, and I wanted him to hear it to get his opinion. So I've spent time and talent for nothing. I was brought home in the buggy which took Zine to Warm Springs. Took dinner at Helen's, mended a tear in pants, and cut out 2 pairs of garments for Flawed, bought some crab apples of Vic Jackman. Friday 31st, wrote Tell's husband, and did other things, received a letter from him after mailing mine. Saturday, September 1st, cleaned my big room, was not well, and that with other work used me up, had a visit in the forenoon from Sister Frink. Sunday 2nd. Was taken in the night with those dreadful spells. They were the worst I'd had for a great while, had not had them before for nearly 2 months. I continued to have them all day and was very sick. Intended to go to Orson's, but Faye to take a note to Zine Whitney inquiring how he was, and she answered by a kind note saying he was quite comfortable. Flawed and Hen called after meeting bro. Josh called after they'd gone and invited me to ride out. The ride was refreshing, was feeling very sick when he called. He wanted to call on Flawed and Hen, so he drove down, but they hadn't returned home. He took me quite a ride and then called on Mary Jane, who urged me to stop. Went in and sat a short time, had a bad spell which alarmed them, and she got me something warm to take. I took it, as I'd felt cold across my breast when riding, was benefited by the ride. Mon 3D. Was feeling quite sick from the effects of deathly spells, though I had no more during last night and today. My appetite about left me. Got a letter from Jen. Tuesday 4th. Felt quite sick. Flawed came and spent the day to make the 2 pair of garment I cut out for her last week from cloth she brought up. Was glad she came, helped to make them, though had a deathly spell every little while through the day. She sat on a lunch for us to dine. Lil had a headache and felt miserable. I sent $6.65 by her to pay Wooly, Young, Hardy and company on her way home. Had $3 greenback sent me from Logan for the sale of my books, left with Bro P, which helped to pay this debt. Wednesday 5th. Had those spells through the night, and today, though oftener, they are growing lighter, but make me feel very bad. And my appetite poor. Managed to cut me out 2 pair of garments out of the cloth Flawed gave me after taking 3 pairs of garments off for herself. Nearly made 1 pair work, helps pass the time away. Mary W. came to tell me she'd been to Orson's. He lays in bed now, so reduced in body, can't sit up. Yesterday, he had a very sick day, threatened with chills, but more comfortable today. Thursday 6th, fast day. Would that I could attend the meeting on the hill. George Bourne gave me the remaining $5 on last month's rent. Among other things transpired during this week is the departure of George's uncle Will Eileen and his son Will to other quarters to board. He is in a situation not favorable to keeping boarders longer. Another incident, one of my hens came out the other day with some chicks and left several eggs in the nest, hence girl Flora let me know, and I had her bring them in and put them where they'd keep warm. 2 chicks came out, and the rest got chilled before morning. 1 more was picking the shell, but it was nearly dead and I put an end to it, and the remainder died from cold. I have preserved my crab apples and made 2.5 gallons of beer and bottled them. I did the fastening of the corks with strings, as I felt so poorly. The man who engaged to take my Charlie's picture and wrote a card last week saying it was finished and made a mistake, it was someone else's instead of Charlie's, which I learned today. Another man calling to inform me that they found it impossible to get a picture from the one I gave him, the one taken at Mesa with a group of his associated there. I was not surprised, as it was not a good one. I've had those 6 spells through the day, but growing lighter towards sundown. Took a walk to T.O. Bought 2 brooms, then went to X-Off, took one of my pictures to M. She told me that Orson was not able to sit up now, nor help himself much. But he was better. She was going to see him. I felt so faint and weak, could hardly walk home. Flawed called and brought me 3 aprons, which the washwoman had sent to the wrong place over a month ago. I nearly made me a garment. Friday 7th. Felt better, but used my strength up washing a few things. Lil is washing for baby. She is poorly in body. Flawed called and took us and Hent and children riding. Called to see Orson, who is doing as well as could be expected. Dr. Booth called while we were there on our way home. Called at drugstore for wine and alcohol, then at Hardy's. Got bill of articles purchased last year and this to compare them with mine. Found everything correct as far as I know. Saturday 8th. This is Mary Whitney's 50th birthday. Her children meet at her house to celebrate it. Myself and family are invited. I had a fall going off the west platform, the step below, or one board breaking. I went onto the ground, but never hurt me. Scared Helen though. Sunday 9th. Felt nearly discouraged, getting done over from doing so little, and other perplexities cast a gloom over my mind. Got ready to go to meeting, but was too tired. Offered to see to Helen's children for her to go, which she was glad to do. Had an awful time with Brady, the baby also, both screaming because he woke up and found his mother gone, and baby with colic, but I was glad she went to meeting as she was feeling blue and came home feeling better, having heard Moses Thatcher and Heber Grant preach. Soul called on his way to meeting. He'd been to Orson's, and I heard also through December that he was comfortable. Had a call from Christine Kimball and Mary Ellen. The latter read me a letter from Abe, who expects to be in Provo shortly to be tried and probably sentenced to the pen for polygamy. Those who openly break the law must abide the consequences. This he is quite willing to do. Josh Whitney called and took me a ride at evening. Called at Flawed's again, but no one at home. Commenced a letter today to Jen. Mon 10th, sick and troubled over my taxes, etc. A letter came from Jen. She thinks she'll send me some money in her next. Finished my letter to Jenny and did up a few papers to send away, but couldn't do much, the baby having to be tended, and feels so poorly. Flawed called to bid us goodbye as she and Hen start south tomorrow morning. Tuesday 11th. A miserable day, felt more feeble, and Lily too. She ironed a little and got dinner by my request. She couldn't eat much, and both of us passed an uncomfortable day from faintness and the debilitated condition of our bodies. Soul came and spent a while. The washwoman washed at Mary's the forepart of the day, and for me the latter got through washing and cleaning my porch and platform. About 9 o'clock gave her $1 on Tigo. I finished doing up papers by much exhortation, the baby demanding so much attention. Wednesday 12th. Worse in body than yesterday, but more comfortable in mind. Doctorship called and expressed her willingness to take orders on T.O. towards pay for waiting on Lil. I was thankful to be able to give her $1.00 towards it. Soul called with father's and mother's steel engraving for his history. His is very good, but hers is not so good. Mrs. Hutchison and daughter called and spent a while after dark. Lil had retired, and I was ready to, though only 8 o'clock. Felt so sick and exhausted. Helen and children went to Farmington this afternoon by train. George went at evening. Thursday 13th. Felt quite sick till after 12. Laid down and slept, and arose refreshed, feeling quite comfortable. Lil did some ironing. This has been a very warm day. Last night I dreamed, among other things, of going to some place to attend ladies' conference, or some kind of gathering. I barely got there at the hour, but could not go, and not having procured a ticket, I remarked to someone that I had so seldom been able to go to these meetings that I'd forgotten that I must procure a ticket. I thought, well, I'll get it in time for tomorrow's meeting, and I happened to fall into good company where I heard some interesting conversation. One was a brother who died, and sat with other brethren talking of the times, and the course that the wicked were taking towards our people. He made the following expression: "We are around here, and know everything that's being done. They do nothing that we are not witness to," meaning a great many brethren besides himself who died, but were busily engaged in this cause though not visible to the natural eye. Friday 14th. Felt better, though obliged to lay down and rest. Forgot to mention going to T.O. yesterday and paying for 100 pounds of flour. Also to Exponent off for the paper and to Scracey's for cakes and cough drops. Was so feeble could hardly get home. Mary got me some red plums at the T.O., which I preserved today read in the D. News that Orson was still improving. Saturday 15th. Worked myself down again cleaning parlor and hall. For 2 or 3 hours I was in such misery I felt despairing, but after laying down for a while and taking refreshments, I felt better. Helen and I received letters from Jen today saying they were well. She sent me $5 of what she borrowed last winter. Sent the pay $6.65 to Hardee's by Lute Whitney. I have missed the ladies' conference and all the rest could not go. Sunday 16th. A quiet day of rest to Lil and me. Soul called a few minutes. I wrote to General near night Lil and I took baby and went to see Sister Vi Kimball. Charlie was driving a hack in some funeral procession, but was home before we left. Vi's health has much improved since she was blessed in the temple at Manti. Mon 17th. Had a bad night with baby. He got full of wind going out yesterday, blowing quite hard coming home. Finished my letter to Jen cut and nearly made baby a dress from a white petticoat. We heard that bro G.Q. Cannon has given himself up and gone to the pen for polygamy. That's the quickest way to liberty it seems. We are enjoying a good rain at last. Tuesday 18th. Rained through the night and cool this morning. Baby cried with colic and I had to get some peppermint and give him. Took a little cold and throat sore before morning. Thursday 20th. Have been pretty sick this 2 days. Coughed all day wet, till my lungs were raw and very painful. And my throat too. Applied turpentine and sweet oil which helped me yesterday morn. Laid down in my bed and took a chill. Had a fever after but my throat and lungs were nearly well. Took quinine yesterday and day before. Had a call from Sister Mary Freeze, mother in the afternoon. Lil has the same kind of cold as mine. Baby had colic so bad I gave him castor oil and paregoric. Orson and Zine called at the gate this morning. Had little Emily with them. Orson is improving. Thinks this trial on a sick bed has helped him to feel sympathy for other sick ones and acknowledges the hand of the Lord in it. This afternoon Soul called and gave me the reading of a snake dream which he'd had the night after G.G. Cannon was taken to the pen. It was of such importance that he'd written it. I saw the man whom the snake represented before I'd read half of it, and gave more of the interpretation than he had previously thought of. I received a good letter from Jen today. Friday 21st. Lil and I feel relieved of our colds. The baby free from colic, having taken paregoric yesterday, slept good. I took dinner down to Mary's, wrote a little more to bro P, and tended baby. Lil went over to Hutchison's and took him with her. Saturday 22nd. Swept my room and sat down to rest. While doing so finished my letter. Dusted room. Afternoon Lute brought me up some nice dinner and watermelon. Enjoyed it very much. Sunday 23d. Was driven up early with bowel complaint. Felt very sick for a while. Lily brought me some toast and tea, after which I arose, washed and dressed baby, and made my bed. But feel weak. Intended going to Orson's today. Forgot to mention Talula Young calling here yesterday to invite me and my daughters and their husbands to be at the Gardo house tomorrow at a reception to be given in honor of Mrs. Saxon and Mrs. Colby. Between 2 and 6 o'clock, she said. Josh and Mary Jane called near night. He had been to the tabernacle bro Nicholson preached. Mon 24th. Baby 4 months old today. I went to the reception of Mrs. Saxon and Colby, took lunch with them, and numbers of ladies at the Gardo. Never thought of doing so, nor of going to their lecture, but enjoyed it very much. Mrs. Jennings had sisters Horn, Kimball, Richards, Smith, myself and 1 or 2 others ride down in her carriage, she waiting till the second load, which I was one of. Walked home. Sister B. Smith and Aunt Zena and Mrs. Beatty accompanying me. Got home at 11 o'clock. Tuesday 25th. Attended Mrs. Saxon's and Colby's lectures. Bid them goodbye at the assembly hall. So tired could hardly walk home. Bought 3 pecks of peaches to preserve and paid 90 CTS. Wednesday 26th. My cough yesterday and today has made me sick, lungs painful and poor appetite. Spent some of the day writing. Mary Ellen called. I read her what I'd written. Thursday 27th. Felt sick this morning, but pared my peaches to preserve and bought 45 cents worth of a Chinaman at $1 per bushel, and pared most of them and canned them. My washing was done today, and the woman stops all night to do over some deities that she says she missed getting clean. She promised to come at 12 o'clock and got here at 2. So was after dark getting through, paid her $50 in meat order, and half in cash. Received a letter from Jen today, forgot to mention Flawed and Hen calling Tuesday Eve. They got home from the South Monday Eve. Friday 28th. Preserved peaches, and put up the remainder left yesterday in jars. Flawed came with buggy and took me to see Orson. She took Zine down street to trade, and I visited with Orson. He told me some things that I'd never heard about Joseph Smith and my parents, etc., in Nauvoo. Talked a little concerning my taxes. He thought, as I was situated unable to live on the means that I have, and pay the taxes, that I'd better sell my place. I told him I have been thinking the same, and concluded that I'd have to. And told him he might speak to some agent, the most honest Mormon one that he could find. Orson has so improved that I was surprised he'd been to the theater the evening before and walked home. Saturday 29th. Cleaned an old chest that had been formerly a pine box brought from Nauvoo, which Father gave me to pack my clothes in. I put it in the hall and filled it with things, and put my jars of preserves and some canned fruit in the cupboard, which I'd emptied for that purpose. Left my room unclean today, did a little sewing holding the baby. Sunday 30th. Soul called on his way to meeting. Though very tired from doing my work, I got ready and went to the tabernacle. In the evening, after Lil was in bed, commenced a letter to Jenny. Helen's Bradford is 2-year-old today. He is quite sick, his bowels very bad. Mon. October 1st. Cloudy and windy in the morning. I dreamed, among other things, of my feet being shod with fresh meat. I thought the piece that I was binding on the right foot a little too large, and I cut off a little to make it equal with the other. The meat came a little above the sole of my feet. Queer dream. Sister Frink called to bid us goodbye. She and bro Frink start for Ohio in the morning to be gone a year. I wrote a letter to Jen in answer to hers. Helen received one from her today, and I received a tax notice that I must pay for water this month, $5 only. What next, I wonder? Towards night, Flawed called and took me a ride. Called at Orson's, who by the by she'd been taking a ride from their road down west, and on the way back called at Market. Flawed got some grapes, tomatoes, pears, and salmon, and gave me. Called at Exoff and got papers from their home. Tuesday 2nd. Storm threatening. Lil did some of the ironing. After dinner we had dinner together and enjoyed it. Wednesday and Thursday spent as usual, except my being taken today by Dr. Barney to see the fair. Was well paid, met many people. Hen and Flawed were there with the Dinwiddie exhibit. I never thought of this being fast day till it had passed. Friday 5th. Went to conference both forenoon and afternoon. Called at Exoff. Met Sister Tate from Thule and others. Saturday 6th. Swept my big room and got ready and went to conference. Wind blew through the tabernacle and gave me a cold. Called at X office to take my copy. Read it, though interrupted numbers of times before getting through. Concluded to stay at home this afternoon to help Lil, who tired out with getting dinner and tending baby. I pared and canned some peaches and bought another peck of Chinaman for the table. Received a letter from Jen in the same envelope was one for Hent. Sunday 7th. Stormed and prevented me from going to conference. Have an addition to my cough. Miss Minnie Williams called after meeting, and I invited her to stay all night. Sister Tate from 12 came and took lunch between meetings. Austin Brown called in to see me. Forgot to mention Orson's calling yesterday to ask me some things about my history or my first born. Peter Hansen also called and sat a while. He'd called a number of times and found me gone once to the fair and 2 or 3 times at meeting or before I got home. Commenced a letter to Jen. Mon 8th. We had a per-night baby crying with colic. Weather cleared up. Miss Williams stopped last night and till afternoon did part of my ironing before leaving for Kaysville, where she lives. Finished letter to Jen. Took care of baby and tired out. Mary Whitney invited me to go to the theater, but too tired as usual. Dr. Barney called this eve to ask me if her boy could stay here tomorrow and all night. As she was called away, I told her yes, he could and welcome. She told us to give the baby carbolic acid for colic, 3 drops to half a teacup of water. Mary W. Whitney brought me $2.50 from Sister pack of camos. The remainder received for my books, which she took there to sell long ago. Tuesday 9th. I tended baby most of the forenoon to let Lily wash for it, and I washed the breakfast dishes tired perfectly out. And Lil 2 Soul called and spent a while Flawed came and invited me to ride and by request took me to the hospital to see Dr. Pratt. She was busy and would not be at liberty for half an hour, so we drove up to Orson's found bro and Sister Stainer there, and bro and Sister MC was urged to stay, but was too anxious to get my eyes examined that I might get some glasses to suit them. Before leaving, I spoke to Orson about my taxes, which it seems he feels is too great a draw upon him, and I was sorry that I'd broached the subject at that time, but I did not know when I'd see him again. We drove from there to the hospital. When I asked the DR what she charged for the examination, she said she was accustomed to charging $3, but would only charge me $1.50. I told her I was glad, as money was scarce with me. I thought that quite enough to charge me or anyone else. I felt as though it was drawing my last, as I've no earthly source to look. Wednesday 10th. I was awake half the night praying that the means might be provided for me to pay my debts and taxes. Today Harriet S. Kimball called and among other things mentioned having to go and pay her tithing. I asked how much it was. She said it was $10, and I pressed her to let me have it and I'd go and pay it for her when I got the money owing me. She was perfectly willing, and I took this as an answer to my prayers. I felt more cheerful, have sewed most of the day shortening baby dresses. Soul called with bro W.M. Miles from St. George. Thursday 11th. Soul came with father's and mother's likenesses, steel engravings, to give Mary, Whitney, Helen, Jenny, and myself. They are excellent. LOL. Whitney Rinders has been on her bed ever since Monday. She helped carry a little stove out of her mother's cellar last Sunday and up to where she's living and blacked it, which they think is the cause. I saw the girl with the stove as if preparing to black it and thought of the day and feared that something evil would come of it. Her mother says she was freezing and she had to do it. I said nothing, but thought that she could have spent that day at her mother's as she had been doing previously. I fear and tremble for those who disregard this commandment of the Lord, as I know they will have to suffer for it. Friday 12th. Our washwoman came and did our washing and scrubbed the back porches. Flawed called with Sister Dinwiddie's carriage to take me and Orson and family a ride. First, we want to get me some glasses at Jocelyn and Park's, cost of Pebbles $3.50 from there. Returned home and took Helen and children to get some canker medicine for Bratty. Brought them home and went for Orson and family. Drove up to brewery and took a glass of their best keg beer. It was dusk before getting home. Saturday 13th. I did but little work, but went over a pile of papers and did up 6 parcels and mailed them. Flawed called, but returned to Orson's, whom she'd taken from Hebe Wells, who has been left to mourn his beloved companion, home, and promised to take him out near dusk. She returned and took me to market, got some steak, and went to Gracie's. Instead of my paying for things, Flawed did it instead, got me a lovely jelly cake, a pie, and some cough drops. Lucy W. Kimball called just before I went out and is going to stop all night. Sunday 14th. Lucy and I attended meeting at Tabernacle. I was so tired it took from my enjoyment. The meeting, though, was extra good. A peaceful spirit prevailed, and the singing at the close was perfectly heavenly. The words were, "O my Father, though that dwellest," but the tune is new to me. Orson was there the first time I've known of his attending meetings since his sickness. Mon 15th, I finished a letter to Jen, commenced last evening afternoon, went to tea. And paid $12.50 tithing from orders received at that place. Bought me a knit petticoat at the tea store. The clerk agreed to take my bed springs for $5 as pay for the petticoat. I'm to send them over. Tuesday 16. Weather quite warm. Soul called to learn the number of fathers, wives, and children to put in his history. I could tell but little and referred him to the wives living in Salt Lake. Went to tea. Got 2 pairs of mittens for little Faye Whitney, and Roy Decker went to X off. And got 4 papers. October 1st, the 15th, not out yet. The evening spent in reading this number of X or part of it, and the evening new. The Woman's Tribune comes regularly every week. Wednesday 17th. A change in the weather. I put short clothes on the baby and feared it might take cold. Wrote a letter to his father inquiring what he intended doing for him, as he needed warmer clothing. If he could not get them, I must, though I was in scrimped circumstances. Made baby another petcoat out of a long one, besides other work and tending him. The sewerage is the theme at the present time. Thursday 18th. dreamed of a river which numbers of people were crossing in wagons and some on foot. I wanted to go to, and Father who was there sought to discourage or hinder me. I felt hurt and thought I could go without troubling him or anyone, the water not being so deep, but it could be waded about knee-deep. And some were wading it. The stream was clear, and the bottom covered with stones and cobbles. I take Father's unwillingness for me to cross with him and those people as a good sign, and my not going as a sign that I'm to live on a while longer. Worked most of the day on baby's dress. Lily finished the ironing. Friday 19th, dreamed of my mother was going somewhere with her, but happened to think of my shawl and went back and looked everywhere but couldn't find it. So I didn't go with her. Suffering from my old complaint piles, but sewed most of the day. Towards night went to tea. Got some celery and took a bag for graham flour, paid $1.10 CTS, for it. Got a mutton roast on the way home. Saturday 20th, sewed most of the day. Orson called this morning to leave $10 for me towards paying taxes. AM short into $4 of the amount required. Flawed. Called towards night. Dr. Barney called last evening to borrow my Book of Covenants to read a certain section which I'd previously mentioned to her, telling the fate of the man of God who undertakes to study the ark, who has taken the course to seal his doom, bringing a blot upon this people that will not be so easy to wipe out. Sunday 21st, very cold and windy. Soul called and spent a short time, told me some things that surprised me about suspicions in the hearts of saints at St. George of GQC. Being out of the way because of his taking certain authority upon himself which did not belong to him. This feeling seems to be very prevalent here and is increasing, Soul says. I wanted to go to meeting very much, though I was tired out. Got ready and got a few steps, but the wind pierced me through and I returned. I'd felt chilly before dinner and dared not risk my health. Mary Whitney called after evening meeting and spent a while. Said Orson occupied the time at the 18th Ward Chapel this evening. Mon 22nd. Helen and I put on a comforter in her front room and tied it with Flora's help, completely done over, and took some cold. Tuesday 23d. I assisted Helen to put on and tie her a comforter, though had to lay down to rest both days after putting it on the frames. Was less tired doing hers as there was less to do. Received a short letter from Peter Hansen. Mary Ellen called and read one from Bro Abe, who was to be in Provo today to be tried for polygamy, the second time he's been dragged out, and suffering from wretched health that will soon send him to his last prison house. Wednesday 24th. Our baby's birthday, 5 months old. I blacked and polished my stove for the middle room. Got George to bring it in, and found that I'd blacked the wrong pipe. Hunted and fitted up a larger pipe, going down cellar a number of times to get the right ones, and not finding an elbow, got one of Mary W. and put it up after clean out the chimney. Lily washed a lot of diapers and see baby better that usual, or we couldn't have done so much. Soul called on business. Thursday 25th. Did but little except arranging furniture and hanging pictures and tending baby. At evening commenced a letter to Lucy W. Whitney, and Logan mailed a short one to Peter Hansen this morning in reply to him. Friday 26th, spent about like yesterday. Saturday 27th, Lily washed a few things for baby, etc. before cleaning up kitchen. 2 letters in the same envelope came to Lil and me yesterday from Logan with $5 in it. I went towards night to pay for a ton of coal at T.O., where I met a brother of mine, the second son of Mary Smithies. From there went to X-Off. For papers went to Sorossy's, got a sweet cake for 20 CTS, and some cough drops. Called at market and got some beef and mutton. After that went and called on Mrs. Hutchison and Phoebe Kimball, who are sick. Lou was here at Eve and informed us that she's to be married next Thursday. Will have no wedding. She expressed a wish for me to witness it, which I will probably do. Sunday 28th. Was sick indeed, was taken on retiring the night before with those awful spells of stagnation of blood, was so desperate in my feelings. After noon, I could not stop in the house, went over to Mr. Hutchison's to see how he was. No better, while there had a deathly spell. Mrs. H gave me some brandy and sugar. I'd intended to come away sooner, but she urged me to stay as she felt very lonesome. Her daughter was sick, also went from there to Law's, had hard work, felt so weak she'd been down to her mother's, and just returned with the assistance of Lute and Miss Raleigh. I found L and baby, and hence on my return had a call from Ruth and Christine Kimball and her daughter Mary with her 3 children. Mon 29th. Have been better today, though have not been free from those spells. Ruth fixed me some red pepper last night in a teaspoonful of sugar, wetting it with water, told me to drink a little cold water before taking it, and with it to take it a number of times through the day, and it would help my heart, said her niece Helen. Bite, I was very much the same as me, and it helped her. Zine called to see if I could stay at her house while she went with Aunt M to California as company for Orson. Flood happened in at the same time. Zine starts tomorrow afternoon. Tuesday 30th. Had those spells more frequent, but not so hard. Did some sewing and tending baby, also finished, and mailed a letter to Lucy W. Kimball commenced last week. George and Helen celebrate their 5th wedding this evening by having a few friends and the two families to supper. Elle has been assisting her to cook. Brady's mouth raw with canker, and he very fretful. Wednesday 31st. We enjoyed a pleasant entertainment, and the table was beautifully set and loaded with luxuries. Elle and Deck assisting. We enjoyed the best of violin, guitar, and banjo music and broke up after 12 o'clock, but I couldn't sleep, and the baby had an awful spell of bellyache. And I never slept till after 3 o'clock, nor Lil, with the exception of one short nap. The day is dark and threatening. Sewed for baby. And afternoon. Flood sent their buggy with a boy to take me up to Orson's. I'd concluded not to go till Thursday or Friday as the baby has a cold and coughs hard, but concluded to come today as this was the only chance to get a conveyance. He first drove me to see Dr. Pratt at the hospital, but she not being there came right up here to Orson's. The rain commenced falling, but only a slight sprinkle. Found Orson at home and had a short visit before he went to work. I sent $10 by him to pay my city and water tax. At evening he read the proof to Father's history, and I followed the copy. At bedtime, Thursday, November 1st, fast day. I was griped and driven up in the night, but feel better today than I have before this week, though those spells come occasionally. Finished a letter to Jen for Orson to mail. Wrote a note to Hentai and sent it by Racy to know how they were, and to get my brown dress. Hent wrote that Brady was so bad with his sore mouth, etc. She felt worried, and also that they were lonely last night. Lil was tired out with her baby and went to bed early. So I concluded to go home when I'd walked 2 blocks south. The car had passed, so I walked on and was not very tired when I got home, though my limbs shook somewhat. I found them all better than I expected. Polly Stevens, who was expecting to go to Aspen soon, had called. Friday 2nd. Got ready to wash, and the washwoman has not come, so I washed a change for Lil and me, and all the babies and deities, making up quite a big wash, and ironed some this evening. Lil assisted fetching water, etc. She was sick yesterday with bowel complaint, and poorly today and downhearted. But I kept up good spirits, and she cheered up towards evening. Soul called this morning with a letter from David K. in Logan, interceding in behalf of Cad, my bro. David, widow, who is with them and destitute of home and the necessities of life. Soul was getting contributions from the family of money or anything that was needed in housekeeping. I packed up a bed comforter and a straw bed tick with a few articles of clothing and sent them over to Phoebe's, where they'll be put in with other things, and sent her. Soul told me of a revelation received the day before from Father concerning his history, commanding him to write certain things which had not been thought of. Saturday 3D. I cleaned the dining room and made a bed on the lounge for Lil, and did considerable work before leaving. Took the streetcar and came up to Orson's about 4 or 5 o'clock. Wind and clouds bespeaking a storm. I was here just in time to escape it. Orson gone to a party at BP Taylor's of the 14th Ward this evening. I received a letter from Jenny yesterday saying they were all well. Sunday 4th, was up and built the fires before anyone else was up. Stormed all night and snowed all day and melted about as fast as it fell. Wrote to Jen, while Racy wrote a short letter to her. Spent some of the day and evening reading the book of Joshua in Racy's book entitled The Beautiful Story. Orson gone to evening meeting. Mon 5th, sewed and finished Joseph Strasbro. Arthur Stainer came home to dine with Orson. Had a pleasant visit, though short. Feel a little anxious to see the girls and little Joseph. Tuesday 6th. Had a cold night. Wrote to the girls and sent by Race. Lil's baby has cried a good deal, and she's worried out hence about the same. Brady is sick and worries her nearly to death. I'll have to go home. Started near sundown. Had a pleasant walk. Found Helen and children in my room with Lil baby. Had a spell of colic before dark. Wednesday 7th. I went to Coop, got $5 of George, and bought flannel for baby, 3 dresses, and 2 shirts, etc. Met Orson, and he asked when I was going to return. I told him how Lily hated to have me leave her, and he told me to bring her up if she would come. I knew she'd be glad to. I told him called at meat market and got some sausage. Lil was pleased at the news that she was going to Orson's. Got ready, and I prepared the clothes for the washwoman, who is to wash for me tomorrow, and Hent will attend to her, and we left for the streetcar. Waited in X office. When I went to see if it was in sight, Orson came along. When the car came up, Sister P was near the door. I requested her to take the baby as he was so heavy with his wraps that I could not step onto the car. She assisted us with our luggage to Orson's gate. Lil's face seems to be worse this evening and worries me. Thursday 8th. Had a poor night. Baby cried a number of times. I had to get out early. He cried to get up, no one up, and I built the fire in front room, made one of his blue flannel dresses today. Commenced giving Lil quinine, her face swelling and inflamed. Friday 9th. Did a little washing for baby and commenced his second dress. Wrote home to Henty and sent by race for some dieties for baby. She wrote me that Brady was better and sent a large parcel of Rochester papers sent me by Helen v. Kimball. Lil and I had a poor night to sleep again from baby crying with colic, but her face is decidedly better. Orson gone to spend the evening at Bro Stainer's. Saturday 10th. I swept the dining room and parlor and finished baby's second flannel dress except buttons and buttonholes. Sent race to Henty for Lil's and my underwear. She sent them, and 2 letters from Jenny to her and me dated the 2nd and 5th and 6th. She wrote that her presentiment was that it wouldn't be long before they would be with us. I hope it will prove true. She is generally correct in her impressions. Sunday 11th. Last night there was a roaring powwow over the election of Harrison for the next president, and I congratulated myself on being up here where they could not disturb my sleep. The baby did somewhat though, but we slept later this morning last night, after the rest had retired. Except for Orson, who was out, and I was ready to bathe. The boy came from juvenile instructor off with 6 of father's books or history, and I sat over one of them till near 11 o'clock and have spent part of today reading it. Soul called and got 3 of them. Went to the funeral of the little daughter of Willard Young at T. Jennings' residence. I attended meeting at the chapel this evening. Flawed Henry, Flo Clausen, and her escort came. Flawed was not aware that I was there till she heard my cough when she turned around. Orson brought me home, then went to spend a little while with Hebe Wells. Mon 12th. Still lovely weather. We rose late this morning. Race was sick in the night. He had a sore throat last eve, and I had arnica rubbed on his throat and did it up with a wet cloth and flannel. Joshua K. Whitney called this afternoon and invited me to ride. Took me home to see Hent where he'd previously been. I told her that I'd sew for her if she got anything ready. She cut out a couple of waists for little Helen. Josh took me to see Flawed, but she was out. From there we called on Mary Jane Grew, and then on her Violet. Stopped there a while, and from there returned to Orson's. Tuesday 13th. Finished a letter to Jen and got Orson to mail it. Done some sewing for baby. Wednesday 14th. Weather quite mild and cloudy. Purchased some lovely china whereof a china peddler cost $250. Finished flannel nightgown for baby and commenced sewing for Helen born. Thursday 15th. Had a short visit with Sister Jane Young, Uncle Joseph's first wife, who'd heard of my being at Orson's and called. Saturday 17th. Went home yesterday and spent the afternoon with Helen. Stood the walk. Finally commenced raining before I started back and made me fearful of an addition to my cough. Orson had a letter from Zine today informing him that she expected to start home on the 16th, but nothing definite. The weather cleared up today after a rainy night. I learned that some of our brethren feel very gloomy over this political outcome. I should think they would after the steps they've taken and drawn others into the mire. Sunday 18th. Zine arrived home and found Orson gone to meeting. She'd written a second letter informing him that she should start on the 16th, and this he missed receiving, so her coming was a surprise, and he knew nothing of it till he came from meeting. She brought gifts for many, among them 3 Chinese dishes for me, a teapot, sugar bowl, and cream pitcher, but I told her of my purchase of some of a china peddler, and she said she thought it too bad as she'd brought me some. They were very pretty and were appreciated, but she proposed giving them to her sister Maggie and getting me something I needed more, so I told her some teacups and saucers would suit me. Went to evening meeting with her and Orson. John T. Kane was the first speaker, and Orson followed. At the start, he startled me by telling an incident that happened that morning of my asking him if he didn't think it required more faith to stand the trials that the early saints were subjected to than it did in these days, which he took for his text. He replied that he thought not that it required more in these days, as they were obliged to stand and endure the insults and every imposition that the wicked were a mind to heap upon them without showing any resentment or retaliation. Besides, those at the start were more zealous and united in the one cause. They were filled with their first love of the gospel. I saw it just as he did as soon as the question had passed my lips. Besides that, they being children of those who had fought and died for the liberty claimed by every true American, thought it their prerogative to follow their example when their rights were trampled upon, as long as it lay in their power to do so. Mon 19th, Flawed came with her buggy to take me home. Sister Presenda Kimball being here to wash and anoint Helen. I had everything packed and took Lil's baby, and she walked home. Sister Presenda required me to wash Helen, and she anointed and blessed her. Tuesday 20th. Had considerable to do picking up and straightening things, and both of us tired out. Marion Sprague called and told me that the funeral of Rebecca Jones would be tomorrow, which I must try to attend. Faye Whitney's been sick for some time with chills. Wednesday 21st. Lil feeling so poorly, I washed the dishes and also some dieties for baby yesterday. I got the dinner, and apple cobbler was the first I'd made for years. I mailed a letter to P and did up several parcels of papers to send to Gentiles. Mary W. Quite sick also. Faye. Thursday 22nd. Tried to write something for Exponent, had a call from Juliet C, and in the afternoon from Lou Barton. Lil feels much better today also. Mary W. Friday 23d. Cleaned my big room and moved my bed for the stove to be put up. George said he would do that. Mary Whitney wanted my double lounge for Faye, as she had to take him upstairs every night. I lent it till Helen is sick when she wants it for George and children to sleep on. Since I let Mary have my lounge, Helen told me that it was decided to be typhoid fever that Alesh Faye, and she'd be afraid to take the lounge after they've had it. Received a letter this eve from the North containing $5. Saturday 24th, Sol Kimball called yesterday and read some letters from Bro David's widow, and Lucy Kimball afternoon went down street to do some errands, picked out an oilcloth at Coop to put under parlor stove. George sent that and some stove pipes also. I called at X off to get papers found. M. Wells got home this morning. Got a pair of shoes for Joseph at tithing store, a bottle of bluing, and a broom, which are to be sent me. Joseph is 6 months old today. Sunday 25th. Spent very quietly. Got too tired to go to meeting before the work was done. Zine and children spent the afternoon at Elle's. I went down to see Faye, who seems better today. Went to Elle's. They were at dinner and invited me, which I accepted. Helen went up to evening meeting with them. Orson at Brigham City to preach today. Mon 26th. Taken with pain in left side up to my shoulder blade, tried to sew. Accomplished little sister Peyton called and stayed till in the evening and took lunch with us. Tuesday 27th. Had a sick night from pain in my side, taken with pain in stomach while bathing before breakfast. Took campfire sling. Orson called. He'd been to administer to Faye. Told me he'd sent Jen one of father's biographies, was worse, and applied mustard poultice, which helped me. Felt comfortable the latter part of the day, and commenced a letter to Jenny. Wednesday 28th. Enjoyed a good night's sleep. Side sore from poultice yesterday. Pain returning. Bro Patterson being down to Mary's administering to Faye. I went down. He administered to me of his own accord, after inquiring about my health, gave me a good blessing, and said the Lord would bless me, and was blessing me. I assured him that he was, and I felt blessed. Finished letter to Jen. Helen invited me and Lil to eat Thanksgiving dinner with them tomorrow. Phoebe Kimball came at evening to invite us to her house to dinner tomorrow, so we've 2 strings to our bow. She'd invited Mary Witt. None else but Mary Kimball, and by the latter declined. Thursday 29th. Thanksgiving Day. My side pained me through the night. And turpentine clear seems to have no more effect than the rest. Lil and I went to Phoebe at 2 o'clock. My side was worse for a while. Exercise increases the pain. It is a year today that Charlie's Violet died, is the reason why Vi remained at home. Lil and I called on Mrs. Hutchison on our return home. Friday 30th. The sun shining lovely the first time for days. Did a little sewing, Lil washed a little for baby, received a note from Hen Dinwiddie to be ready at 4 o'clock and Flawed would send for me. I was ready in time and waited till 6 for carriage. Flawed was not able to get anyone before that to fetch me. Orson was invited to take dinner with them, though I knew nothing of it till he came in soon. Hen's guitar was brought him to play on Brother Dinwiddie, and Hen's mother's family were the only ones except Hebe Dinwiddie and wife invited. Had a pleasant time, though the pain which troubled me had got up under my shoulder blade and through my breast, which alarmed me somewhat, and I got some flannel and turpentine and covered the parts, which was like fire, and it relieved me. I felt fearful that I was going to be seriously ill and would not be able to go home. Saturday, December 1st. No sun shining today. After retiring last night, had one of those deathly spells, and 2 more in the night. It is a month and 4 days since I was taken with them the time before this. Am thankful to be no worse from the pleurisy, pain much lighter. Flawed invited me to go with Sister Dinwiddie to this afternoon's matinee at the theater to hear the minstrels, this a rare treat. I accepted and was driven around to my home to get my gloves. Found the family doing well, little Helen at the table, and also Lil and baby. While at the matinee had those spells, and the most deathly ones every few minutes, which prevented my enjoying it as I hoped to be done. Some were so hard that my sight was affected, and the faces and everything mixed up. I continued having them after my return till I felt quite prostrated. But after taking lunch between 8 and 9 o'clock revived, and had no more till about 10. We were attending prayers by the urgent request of Flawed. I was mouth, and when nearly through had to close, a dreadful spasm taking me, and then another before getting into bed. During the respite I had questions on principles applied by Hen and Flawed, which I answered to my best ability, and tried to make Flawed understand that we could make little or no progress in spiritual things or gain that faith and knowledge that enables us to rise above the weaknesses of the flesh, to see into the future, and endure what the Lord in His wisdom and tender mercy sees fit that we shall pass through, to make us capable of filling an exalted position in His presence hereafter, and that was my greatest ambition and desire. And to have my children walk in the path of obedience, that in doing this they'd find it much easier, and their lives much happier, than in rebelling or kicking against the pricks. Sunday the 2nd. Found me better, had but few of those spells through the night. The sun is out making things cheery. Hen gone to Sunday school when Flawed and I took breakfast. As they got up late, attended evening meeting in this ward, and enjoyed it. Flawed, Hen, and his Uncle Tom were going. And though feeling poorly, I was nothing worse for going but better. Mon 3D. Another pleasant day, but having more of those death-like spells in the night, feel poorly enough. Sol Kimball came and took dinner with us, and spent a little time after preaching to Flawed towards eve. I went with Flawed to Sister Dinwiddie's, took tea, and Hen came afterwards. Felt so sick with pain in my side, etc. Couldn't attend Bro Palmer's lecture in the 7th ward, as I'd intended. Tuesday 4th. Still sick mostly from pain in my side. Applied turpentine again, mended some tears in Flawed's lace dress. Teachers of R.S. called. Came home toward night, called at the market and got me some butter and eggs. Flawed insisted upon paying for them. Called at our meat market and got some beef steak. Found the folks pretty well. Wednesday 5th. Slept poorly, have had only an occasional deathless spell yesterday nor today, but feel sick from their effects and pleurisy. Towards night went to the tea-off store, bought 2 dress patterns which a brother had just brought there. One cashmere black, $1.25 a yard, the other thick dress cloth green double width for $1.50 a yd. They cost $21.75, the latter I designed for myself, and the cashmere to sell to raise money to pay Harriet Kimball the $10 she allowed for her tithing, and lent it me to pay taxes last October. Thursday 6th. For hours of sleeplessness latter part of the night made me a pair of garments, and cut out the 2nd. Received some Rochester papers from Helen Violet Kimball. This has been a cloudy day. My pleurisy and deathly spells have ceased, and I'm grateful. Friday 7th. I took bromide last eve, and slept all night, had troublous dreams, thought Jenny and baby were with me, and I'd got a large tub full of fresh beef and other things to keep house with, expecting her to live with me. When behold Ed sent for her, and though he was in the place never came himself, I was heartbroken, and said to Jen over and over, I cannot live without you, you must not leave me, and you shall not go. But go she did, though she felt sad to leave me the next day. They both came back, and I thought to stay as Ed was putting his wagon and horses in my stable, but they left again that evening, and I passed through another agonizing scene. I gave away and sold my meat and other things, as I had no body ever. Lily had gone away to keep house, for after I awoke had another, and very peculiar dream, was the leading spirit in some kind of an exhibition bearing the expenses, etc., and there was much of interest and profit. But cannot follow the drift of it, only there were many men and women there, and when it was over, the house and two-wheeled carts used to bring the things on, a variety of fine goods, and trinkets were there. Many of the latter I gave to different friends. But the bulk, the house in particular, I wanted to sell, but the prospect was anything but encouraging, as no one appeared to want to purchase. I wondered when I woke if it meant that I would not be keeping house very long, and tea would be useless for me to expend means in that direction. Time will explain all. I went a ride with Josh Whitney, who came and invited me. We first called at Flood's, and again found her gone. Went and called a minute at Mary Jane's, then up to Orson's, but found no one at home. Then to call on Lou Barton, and found her gone. From there to T.O. store, paid a little that was due for the dresses got Thursday, and bought a purse or satchel for $4. And 50 CTS worth of homemade soap. Commenced a letter to Jenny yesterday. Last night Mary Whitney had a quarter of beef cut up in her shanty, and this morning found the door open and the best of it gone. There was not the least mark or sign of cats or dogs, and she's sure that some two-legged thief took it who saw a light there last evening and heard Mr. Vincent chopping it. Faye is up around Saturday 8th. I cleaned the woodwork in middle room and the outside of the 3 front windows. Lil cleaned part of the kitchen and the doorsteps and west platform. Sunday 9th. Spent at home quietly, read in Bible, and this evening finished letter to Jen. I received another from her Friday, dated the 4th, little Eddie's birthday being 1 year old. Mon 10th. Cut Lil a basque by another, and it fitted nicely. Phoebe Kimball came and sat a while, had Tessa's baby. Mary's Faye worse again. Flawed called. Tuesday 11th. Sewed so study was quite used up. Tried to write a letter at Eve, but had to give that up. Lil and baby went to Sister Musser's and spent the afternoon. Flawed called but couldn't come in. Wednesday 12th. Bro, Morris called and got the picture he took for my Charlie, and one taken at Mesa to alter it by. Thursday 13th. Flawed came and spent the afternoon, and Hen came to dinner at Hence, where L and I joined. She's washed a lot of dieties and other things for baby, and I had to tend him. Have nearly finished her basque last evening. I commenced a letter to our T.P. Racy Whitney brought me 2 pounds of splendid coffee yesterday, which I gave him the money to buy at a little store kept by Mrs. Harris near Orson's, and he brought me another china cup which Zine got me of the china peddler whom I bought somewhere of when stopping there. And one of the cups I found broken, which he replaced with another without charging. Friday 14th. Lil washed a few more articles of underwear and aprons, stockings, and towels, etc., and I helped her. Received a letter from Jen with $5 and answered it. Finished Lil's basque. The weather quite snowy and winter-like. Saturday 15th. Morris sent back the picture. The only improvement made was changing the parting of the hair from the right side to the left. Not satisfied with it, the artist starts for New York tomorrow. I cleaned the sitting room this forenoon and then ripped up Lil's old black skirt, turned it the other side out, and made it over, besides rinsing the clothes from the rinse water and tending baby some. The weather cleared up this afternoon. Sunday 16th. Spent quietly. I read a long revelation in Book of Covenants before morning prayer. Weather cloudy. Mon 17th. Had a rainy night and the sun shining today. Partly made me a garment, then went to T.O. Bought a pretty scarf to send Jen for Christmas gift, and 3 perfume bags, and a little scrubbing brush, the latter for little Helen born, and a bottle of cough medicine and pound of raisins. Walked down to view some of the windows decorated for Christmas. Bought a little box of dishes to present Soul's little Helenmar, a box with a spring inside, and a girl's head springs out when the box is unhooked for Orson's Emily, and a little doll for Jenny's baby. The sights lovely. On my return called at X-Off and got papers, then at meat market for steak and sausage, then home. Tuesday 18th. Blacked and polished my parlor stove, and finished my garment. Commenced yesterday at night. G. Bourne carried my stove into the parlor. Wednesday 19th. Tried to compose some lines for Roy Decker's album, which has lain here ever since Jen wrote in it, for me to write. Engaged a woman to wash Thursday. She's washing today for Helen. Feel sore all over from my work yesterday. The weather delightful. Thursday 20th. Dress the doll for Jen's baby, and George will mail the things today. Our baby has cried most of the day, and Lil trying to wash Dides, the woman not coming as she agreed, and I trying to work, determined I'd go to our conference whether or no, and did so. Walked there and back. It had commenced before I got there. I was called to speak and responded. A letter from President Woodruff to Sister Zena was read. It concerned their grain. They'd inquired of him whether or no they would be wise in parting with it. He advised them not to only lend it if they wished to the men who'd see that they had it back. Said it was not likely to be any cheaper than now, but higher. I walked. Stopped into Hardee's and bought a few little articles for Christmas gifts. Also, into tea store, got 2 pretty souvenirs and other things. Friday 21st. We washed white clothes and Dides, but the fog so heavy made it dark, and we left them in the rinse. Orson called this morning, said he'd be in again before Christmas. Sol called and stayed a while, is doing his very best to get a pardon for bro Abe, or his release, as his health is suffering. I gave Sol the box of dishes for his little Helen. Saturday 22. Finished and put out the washing, Lil starching and hanging out the white clothes. Sister Peyton called this evening. Sunday 23. Reigning Miss Williams from Kaysville came and spent a while, was on her way to Payson to spend Christmas. Mon 24th. Our baby's 7 months old. The day Cloudy wrote in Roy Decker's album as follows. I promised, you know, in your album to write, and for months it has lain as a standing rebuke, till at last I've snatched pen and ink to indite a bit of concession on this leaf of your book. Moral: if we ever enjoy this sweet by and by, we must be prompt in our duties, honest and true, do good to each other while it's yet called today, as life's but a moment speeding swiftly away. December 24th, 1888. Wrote a note to bro Joseph Kingsbury asking him to do me the favor of asking for a load of coal to be sent me as we were out, and trust me till the 1st of January. Tuttle took it to him and got me some corned beef. Received a letter from Jen and a box containing Christmas presents for Helen's and Orson's children from her and Ed. Race came and presented me with a pair of kid gloves, just a match for my new bonnet and dress. I gave him the things that Jen sent, a box of blocks, a puzzle for him, and one smaller for Emily, and a rubber doll for baby Helen. March. Lil's baby got a rattle box. Helen born a set of tin kitchen dishes to keep house with Brady, a wooden cart with driver, and a rubber rattle for the next heir. George has put up and done considerable towards filling the Christmas tree. Helen not very well, as Brady had croup last night. We ironed this evening, both tired out. Tuesday 25th, Christmas morning. Baby cried twice in the latter part of the night, and Lil lit the lamp. When he got quiet and slept, she feels it today. I laid awake 3 hours and more after being awakened. We have a happy family, receiving and giving. Little Helen and Brady have so many gifts they hardly know what to play with first. And it's the same at the other house. George and Hent gave me another spittoon, flawed, and Hen presented 2 $5 gold pieces. Bro Patrick sent $6 in orders on Teasdale's store with compliment of the season. Sent Mary W. The same, I expect. Yesterday we received a lovely leg of mutton with compliments of the Bishop's General Storehouse. Flo Clausen sent me the poem Golden Leaves by Flawed. M. Piper brought me a pocket handkerchief and sachet bag. L. Decker a pair of winter hose, also the same for Lil, and baby a hood made by herself. Lil received a china cup and saucer in a nice case from George, and Hent the children's gallery from Flawed, and Hen, and also a pair of kid gloves. They gave me $10 in gold. I gave Lil a bottle of scent, set in a glass holder for toothpicks. I gave Hent, Flawed, L, and her Roy M. Hattie and Faye little tokens of remembrance. And also little Emily, Zine Whitney, who with Orson and children called on their way to Teen Taylor's, where they are to take dinner. They said they'd not made any presents as they're not able. I told them I thought those brought from Cal. By Zine was enough. I went down to Mary's. She received a present of a large life-sized picture of Pa from her children. Clarky was just starting to bring me a lovely silk or satin handkerchief for his Christmas gift. There seemed no end to the presents they'd received, or the children, I should say. Brady has a fever and quite sick this afternoon, is also Crippen. Wednesday 26th. Last night the coldest we've had. Went to Teasdale's and traded the orders sent yesterday by Brother Patrick. Got Lil and baby and myself a pair of stockings and some cloth for her 2 basques to work in, and a pair of linsey sheets double width run in $2.50 called at T.O. Got 4 small dishes weather very cold and chilled me through, and I was quite exhaust. Got my dinner and hence then cut and basted Lil a basque out of calico and lined it with cotton flannel. Hent received a letter from Jen Flood. Sister Denwoody and her youngest daughter called on us. Bratty still sick. My call came this afternoon, Thursday 27th. A few minutes after I'd retired last eve. After 10 o'clock George called for me. Hent wanted to see me. I went right in. The water had broken as I suspected. I dressed as soon as I'd put a quilt under her and went for Dr. Ship who were here very soon. I stayed till after 2 o'clock when the doctor said I might as well retire. This was very agreeable. Hent had scarcely any pain then, was in labor till 20 minutes to 5 o'clock today when she was delivered of a fat girl baby. I worked at Lil's basque till in the afternoon when I went and held the chloroform to Helen's nose. She had a tedious and severe time for all that. The babe has dark hair. Little Helen better, but Bratty sick and troublesome yet. Worked hard on Lil's basque most of the day. Friday 28th. Lil's baby had taken a hard cold coughs and is very hoarse. Helen has awful after pains and worried with the children. Orson called to get some dates out of our family record. Abe Kimball, just out of the pen having been pardoned by the president, came and spent a while. Is very feeble and emaciated. Saturday 29th. Obliged to wash us a change. Baby sick with the same distemper as Hent's children had. Lil brought the water and hung out clothes, kept a fire in the big room all night last night, and will do the same while he's sick as they'll sleep with me. Tuttle got me things from stores. Sunday 30th. Lovely day but cold. Baby worse, has a fever and cough towards night. I undressed him and anointed and prayed for him, gave him paregoric twice. Afterwards Anna Christensen came and spent a while. She's from the south. She lived with me when young. I took her from the camp of Norwegians to work for me when she couldn't talk English and taught her to work our way, she says. Helen's still improving. Mon 31st. Baby slept pretty well and is some better. I took a chill this afternoon, then fever, cough, deeply seated and lung sore, and am threatened with pleurisy again. We've done our ironing and I finished Lil's basque. Diary of Helen Mar Kimball Whitney.